Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to One Civil Law. Hope you're having a great day. So, juror number 11 appears to be continuing to make the rounds. And CBS News, I believe this is. Who is this who did this interview? Should have taken note of that. Hold on one second. NBC 10 Boston. NBC 10 Boston did a segment in which they did an interview with this juror. And then they posted like basically the entire uncut interview as a separate video, which I am here for it. So I appreciate that, right? It's like, let's just watch the entire video. And I thought that was cool. So hopefully we'll get some additional insight into the jury and what they thought about things and some additional thoughts relating to that. And that'll be good. Also, just want to take a moment to congratulate Ian Runkle, my friend and yours, for such a wonderful interview yesterday with the defense lawyers in the Karen Read case. It was awesome with that discussion, and they're interesting people. It was interesting watching them in like more casual clothes. I don't know. It's like the juxtaposition was interesting. I wanted to hear more about their workout routine. Apparently, Alessi doesn't sleep. He only gets 3 hours a night. Maybe he's too busy with his side work of being an assassin, unspecified. But apparently he was able to work out during the trial. So my excuses are looking even more pitiful by comparison. And he's what, 67? My inferiority complex is rising with every moment. Although with a person like Alessi, I think that's probably natural to have an inferiority complex. It was a lot. But congratulations on a successful interview. It was very insightful and thoughtful. And of course, Ian Runkle's the best person to do that kind of interview because he's the greatest. He was nervous. He told me he was. He's like, I'm worried about this. He did fine. He did great. All right, let's watch this thing. Let's see what's going on.
About your feeling when you found out that you were going to be on the jury, when you went to your voir dire in jury selection and they picked you to be on this jury. How did you feel?
When I was in the room, when I received the letter, I liked the idea because I'd never been a juror before. I wanted to know how the process is. For me, it was like a 1-2 day thing. It's going to be fun to do it. When the judge said, oh, it might take 8 weeks, I was like, wow, I hope I'm not selected. And once I was selected, I had to run. All I could think was the logistics of everything. So I just want to run home and make phone calls to arrange everything. But I was excited. I was happy to be part of the process. I had no clue it was that big. It was a mediatic case. I had no clue to get a lot of attention.
Yeah, you see, like, this is the thing, too. People keep saying, like, it's really going to be really difficult to find jurors who don't know. And, you know, this woman just doesn't really know. She doesn't know anything about the case. And it's big story in the community, but there's just so many things for people to pay attention to these days with media. It's like there's so many things to pay attention to that it's very easy to not have any particular understanding of this case. There's a lot of things that you and I don't have particular understandings of because there's just so much information. She's like, I didn't really know anything. So finding jurors who didn't really know anything, yeah, it turned out to be a little bit easier than I guess we thought it would be. All right, fair enough.
But I did like the idea of being part of something that big and important.
Can you tell me what you knew about the case? Of course, the understanding is that you don't have to be ignorant of the case. You just have to not have an opinion.
It looks suspiciously like you have a microphone on your jacket, but the microphone isn't actually working. Way to go, NBC 10 Boston, lol.
Informed, right, and be open-minded and evaluate the evidence in the courtroom. So what did you know about the Karen Read case before you started hearing evidence?
I know she had a billboard on Route 1. Every time I go grocery shop, I see Free Karen Read. That's all I knew about her and her name. I also saw some lounge that has signs Free Karen Read, but didn't strike me to go search and understand what it was. So I had no clue what crime or what she did, who she was, who John was, nothing. I really didn't know. And I never heard about those supporters, the big crowd she has. I learned.
Does Runkle have 350,000 subscribers? Did he pick up that many subs last night? Because he was like at 301 or 303 at the start of the stream. Did he pick up like 47,000 subs last night? Hold on. He's at 310. Jeez, man. Yeah, I was like, someone said 350. I was like, no way. No way. Okay, he only picked up 9,000 subs last night. Okay. All right. I'm not going to have to like kill him now. Okay. All right. All right. That's good. That's good news. I don't have to kill Runkle anymore. All right, good news. All right, that's yeah.
That the pink was her color like mid trial, so I stopped wearing pink because I had a lot of pink shirts and I didn't want to give it the wrong vibe. I didn't really know. I don't watch local news. I don't watch television. I had a pause on social media, and whatever I have on social media, my X account is my last post of 2022. My Instagram post is last one was last year. So I just didn't have access to what was going on here. I'm more interested in international news, Brazilian news, and that was it.
Can we talk about your background a little bit? Because you came, I called you the expressive juror, because the jurors I thought generally were very stoic, took a lot of notes, a lot of heads down, you took a lot of notes, but as the trial went on, your expressions became a little bit more obvious. I know that you were controlling them because I could see you. I also couldn't read what you were reacting to, like if it was, sometimes you'd have the same look going back and forth between the lawyer and the witness. Can you talk about your background a little bit?
Yes, I have a law degree from Brazil. I'm licensed to work in Brazil. I graduated in 2010, and then right after, a year and a half after, I moved to the States to study, to learn English. I didn't know any English before I got here, and I never worked again as a lawyer. I just help some colleagues I have in Brazil with some cases. Sometimes I can do a petition from here. I still know how to write and think like a lawyer.
You know, for someone who learned someone who apparently only learned English like after they graduated law school in Brazil and therefore learned it as an adult, her English is really, really good. I was like, if I try to learn Portuguese, there's no way my Portuguese is going to be this good. I'm quite sure. So, yeah, excellent.
And I also have an MBA in marketing, because my life is here now and I want to do something professionally after my kids grow a little bit. So I combine marketing with my law degree, and I work with the Brazilian law offices to do their digital marketing, their social media, and do things. Another reason why I was involved with the social media, but all in Brazil. Everything I saw was all in Brazil, was never here.
When you reached out to me, you indicated that, I don't want to put words in your mouth, and I don't remember exactly, but it was surprising to you what people were thinking about the case after you were able to plug back in to the world about the case. What are some of the misconceptions you think people out there have that you've seen, and is there anything that they're getting right?
Some people got things right. I reached out to you because I thought you had a good impression of us. I choose the journalists I want to talk to. More people came on the way, but I didn't have a chance to look to all the media and all the news about us. I just look on X, and I start, as soon as we got back in the room after we give the verdict, I just open my X account, old, and I start to following everybody. I didn't know your name, I didn't know anybody's name, so we start to open my X account, who's this, who's that? And there was some misconception, misunderstanding. The jury sent a note to the judge asking her to stop objecting Brennan, or John O'Keefe's brother had to change seats because a jury complained, or the jury, let me remember one more. The jury were uncomfortable with Paul O'Keefe. The jury sent a note to the judge. Oh, the last one, the jury already know everything. They just are hanging on the second-degree murder. That's never happened inside the deliberation, but some reporter said that. Like, how do you know? You don't know. Oh, the jury is my cousin. He said X, Y, and Z. No, your cousin wasn't there. So I read a lot of this.
Yeah. So unsurprisingly, people were saying a lot of bullshit. Yeah, unsurprisingly. Oh, a juror had to change his seat because they were uncomfortable. No, that never happened. It's like, oh, we said, we sent a note saying we wish you'd stop objecting so much. Yeah, that didn't happen. Yeah, no, those yeah, people say some bullshit. Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
And you felt like you wanted to just get the record straight, that your experience as the juror did not match what was happening on social media.
No, we never sent a note to the judge before the deliberation. Yep. We never complain. We are a very happy group of people, fulfilling our duty, and that's it.
People saying a lot of bullshit out there.
I'm posting that. It's very different watching.
I was there. I'm pretty sure it was bullshit, she says. Yeah, okay. Yep. I'm sold. Yep.
Watching the trial and then being in the courtroom, very different experience. So people would react to the judge's heavy sighs or a witness's heavy sighs, which I know you didn't hear because I didn't hear, and there's no amplification in the courtroom. But one thing people, and I think that I went ahead and projected onto you plural ustedes, that
the plural ustedes. Wow. First of all, is that the right word in Portuguese? Because is that the right word in Portuguese? Or is this reporter just an idiot? No, it's not the right word in Portuguese. Yeah, I had a feeling it wasn't. This reporter's an idiot.
There was some growing frustration with the number of sidebars toward the end of the trial, because at one point I thought the judge said, "This will be quick," and you all laughed, like, "Yeah, tell us about it." Were you just patient with it, knew that this is the cost of being on a trial, or did it start to wear you down a little bit?
No, we didn't care about the sidebar at all. And we even said that to the judge when she came to talk to us after. The sidebar for us was a moment to stretch, to close our eyes, to clear our head. We didn't mind the sidebar. We laughed because it was probably not true that would be quickly. And all the time she apologized and everything, and we think it's funny to apologize. We know it's part of the process. We expect that to happen. I feel like sometimes judge or lawyers, they would talk to us like if we have no clue what a court process is, what the system is, what the legal system is. And we do, not just me, everybody does. We understand it's part of it. So we like the sidebars. And I can speak for all of us. We like it.
Well, she would know. She was there. So apparently the jury had no problem with the sidebars. It was frustrating to us, but the jury was cool with it, and I guess in the end, that's all that really matters, because the jury is the jury. So if they're cool, I guess we're cool. I mean, all right, yeah, all right, fine, all right, cool, all right, fair enough.
This more sidebars.
Yes, because we can stretch, we stop. We didn't like when she says, "Oh, we're gonna get here at 8:30, and then we're gonna get inside at 9:30." Didn't make sense. Or they get late, too long of a lunch break because they need to do the sidebars. So I guess the sidebars without us, we didn't like much because we want to get going. But the sidebars with us inside the court, we're okay with it.
What about, this is just a personal question for how people relate it. I know that I can't sit for 10 minutes without my phone, right? I can't pick up, if I'm sitting waiting for something, I want to get my phone, I just want to look at it, I want to scroll through stuff, even if it's unimportant. And I kept looking at all of you having to sit there, and some of the sidebars, which would go for a long time.
We could check.
And your generation, I mean, I'm 63, right? So I actually remember having to sit doing nothing. Was there this anxiety that and I know I don't want you to speak for other people, but I'm sure you chit-chatted about it. Was there an anxiety of nervousness of not having a device? Or did you look at it as a Zen moment that maybe I'll reclaim my...
I think the first few weeks, for me at least, was hard. Especially because I want to check what was going on home with my kids, so it was hard to not have the phone. But we got used to after 2-3 weeks, I guess. I did, at least. I was okay with it. Sitting down, listening that much information, that was hard because most of us were out of college or haven't been in school for such a long time, and it felt like we were back in school and need to take notes and pay attention. So it took me a while to get used to, again, to have that much information and learn and understand everything. But other than that,
yeah, with respect to the sidebars being sealed, I don't know. Excuse me. I don't know what that means in terms of like if they're permanently sealed. And if they're permanently sealed, that doesn't really make any sense, especially at this point. It doesn't make any sense for the sidebars to be sealed. Why would they be sealed? That doesn't make any sense. I suppose portions of them could be sealed if they related to like particularly sensitive information. But as a general policy, why would they be sealed? I don't understand. So like you could have redactions, but if all the sidebars are sealed permanently, I don't understand that. That doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to me from first principles. Maybe that's, unless that's the standard in Massachusetts, and even then it doesn't make sense to me. So my first question is that just the standard policy in Massachusetts, which doesn't make sense to me? Or is this a Judge Bev thing, which I guess also doesn't make sense to me, but yeah.
we learned it, we got used to.
All right, so I'll preface this with you were all very professional, very studious, took a lot of notes. What was the giggling about?
That room is a lot, man. It just...
Professional, very studious, took a lot of notes.
That room is a lot. Get that NBC logo on screen, man. That room is a lot. Okay.
What was the giggling about? You had 2 giggling episodes.
You know,
and I know that you tried. I saw all 3 of you trying to bring it back together. And I have to admit, I had a giggling episode with a court officer during some testimony, so it happened.
I remember one of them was because I think Alan Jackson asked Yuri Buchanan, the judge asked, you expect me to read all this? And then Alan Jackson said, yes, I do. So we laugh about it because it was a thick document. And another, I don't remember another one, but that one, the 3 of us laughed, and I think the judge called us to ask. The
question seems condescending. Yeah, I sort of understand what you mean now that you pointed out. The interviewer is a little... The interviewer is a little infantilizing, isn't she? A little bit. She's a little. Yeah. Her tone is slightly off. Yeah, it's like the reporter thinks that the juror is beneath her in some way. Now that you point that out, I'm like, yeah, there's a little bit of derision in there somewhere. Yeah.
Individual questions on the following day or 2 days after, and we thought it was because of that, because the 3 of us just start laughing. Me and Juror 4, that's also speaking.
And Jason.
Jason, yes. Yes. And the other lady between us. So it was because of that. Like sometimes, and we try not. Some witnesses show or said something that was so absurd, or some interactions between lawyers and the witness was a bit rude. So we have to keep together, be quiet, but something very entertaining.
Tell me, it's a workplace basically too, so things happen that you end up having a private joke about something, and then it just gets out of hand sometimes. Talk to me about the reaction when the verdict was...
Also, fix your mic, Elaine. Fix your mic, Elaine. Jesus.
...read, and the crowd outside screamed and cheered, because after the first verdict that was not guilty, it was hard to hear in there, and outside just erupted. Were you shocked about that? Tell me what it felt like as you heard you heard your verdict being read, and then you heard the crowd outside.
To be honest with you, I don't remember what happened in that courtroom that day, that moment, because once I heard the people outside, I just closed my eyes and I started crying, and I left the courtroom without looking to anyone. I did not expect to hear it, because through the whole trial we didn't hear anything on a jury room. We did not saw many people outside because we come from the back of the courthouse, so we would see someone walk with a pink shirt here and there, but that was it. Never hear chanting or comments or laughing or yelling or booing, nothing. And it's particular to me when I heard that people screaming out of happiness. At the same time, I was seeing John Wick's family crying out of sadness, and that broke my heart. So that moment, I kind of understood how big this case was and how we're making someone happen, and we're making a lot of other.
Who am I calling Elaine? The reporter whose microphone isn't working. Do you not get the reference? From Johnny Depp, the lawyer whose microphone she always forgot to turn on, and it became a whole meme. Turn your mic on, Elaine, because the lawyer Elaine forgot to keep turning on her mic, and the reporter's mic isn't working because. Okay. I guess not everyone here is here. I guess not everyone here is deep in the lore. Oh well.
People said to. So I don't remember what happened in courtroom that moment. I just closed my eyes and cried.
When you reached out to me, you noted that you felt that justice had been served for Karen Read, but hadn't been served for John O'Keefe and his family. Can you talk about what that means?
Well, through the whole trial, I observed a lot of his family, his mom, and his moments to cry. Other family members or friends cried too, and it's emotional. It's a life. It's a person who lost his life unnecessarily. None of us know what happened to him. What we know is that wasn't Karen Read responsible for his death.
There you go.
She did not kill him.
There you go.
And if she did, the police and the Commonwealth didn't prove that to us.
See, I like this answer. This is very good. I have no problem with this answer. I don't think she killed him. And if he did, it's the police fucking it up. Yeah, that's perfectly great, right? It's like, yeah, your job is not to figure out whether or not Karen Read killed John O'Keefe. That is not your job. Your job is to figure out whether the state proved each and every element beyond a reasonable doubt. So I don't think she did. And if she did, the state fucked it up. Great. You understood the assignment, right? You understood the assignment. Good job. Excellent work.
So it's still, I feel super happy that she got justice and she's gonna live her life, and I hope she have a great life ahead of her. And I feel extremely upset and frustrated that John O'Keefe's family, his mom, his father, who were there, his brother, they gonna still hanging on the question who killed John O'Keefe and what's gonna happen for now. I don't know. I know there is a civil case that can come up now. I don't know if the I don't know if the DA said anything, or Mr. Breno. I didn't hear from anybody. But I really hope this case can be reopened and they can investigate it and find who killed John O'Keefe.
That is not going to happen. There is no way on the face of this earth that it's going to happen. For just every possible reason. One is face, because there is no way that they will admit to anything, like collectively. There's no way they would admit to anything. And the other is practical. If they, even assuming they did an investigation, and even assuming somehow they could bring charges against somebody else, it would be basically impossible, because any defense attorney in some future prosecution, all they have to do is basically just take the state's case and make it their own case, right? That's the lazy version, and it will work fine, right? So if I were a defense lawyer for some future person charged in the murder, how would I go about the defense? I'm just going to recycle the prosecution's case and make it the defense's case and point the finger at Karen Read. That's reasonable doubt, basically given. And, I'm basically going to win. So they've created, there's the case, the waters are so muddied. The waters are so muddied that short of, someone breaking down and like confessing and, signing in blood and all the rest of it, there will never be any justice for John O'Keefe. And that's just sad.
Who do you hold responsible?
I can't hold anybody responsible, because of the same way I did not convict Karen Read because I didn't have proof of her being participating of his death. I cannot say another people did. But I do have my suspicions, and I already spoke about this, that something happened inside the house, and that I find very fishy, that Brian Higgins and Brian Alberts and the rest of the family were investigated. I'm not even talking about the guests of the party at that night. They were guests. But there was a moment in the court that a picture of the front of the house was shown to us, and they had to take us out of the courtroom to cover the garage door. And I wonder, why can't we see the garage door? Why Dr. La Posada couldn't speak about what she saw in pictures? This was objected, so it wasn't on the record, I think. But she said something about, I saw real estate pictures. She said in court, and then objected, and we needed to not consider that question. But once the word is out, I wonder why, what was inside the house that we couldn't hear about it, or why we couldn't see the picture of the garage.
It's such a challenge to be told that it's objected and sustained and don't think about it, or it's, we're going to strike it from the record, forget that we just said that. It does seem like an absurd way to, and that's for every trial. It seems like an absurd way to run a trial.
Yeah, we did not consider that information when we're deliberating, of course, but still in my head now, and I want to know what happened at the garage, what happened at the house, why that people never came out, what Brian Higgins was doing at 2 a.m., 1 a.m. at the police station.
These are good questions.
When the prosecution rested,
from the first trial, he apparently was moving cars around after having had, what did he testify to, like 6 drinks minimum? Because he testified in the last trial relating to the drinks he had. Yeah, so that's what he said he was doing. He went, right? Because he went there to move cars around at 2 in the morning in the snowstorm, having had 6 drinks. Yeah, huh?
What was the narrative? What was the point that you believe the Commonwealth was trying to convince you of? If I had to tell you ask you what the prosecution's argument was to you, what would you say it was?
That's a good question.
Well, they want to convince us that she back up her car fast enough to clip him, taillight cut his arm, and throw him away. He hits his floor on a frozen lawn and died. That's it.
Basically.
And she saw everything and left the scene.
Were there any witnesses for the prosecution that you felt did a good job moving that narrative forward and proving that?
No, because just the eyewitness could say all that, and that case was Jim McCabe, who was the only one we heard, and we couldn't believe everything she was saying. Her story was very credible, was very well said. I think that's the expression, but didn't make much sense. It's like if she was coached. I think some...
Really? You thought Jen McCabe's story was a little too practiced? You thought Jen McCabe's story struck you as a little artificial? You thought Jen McCabe's story struck you as perhaps a little rehearsed? Really? Whatever made you think that way? Why did you think those things?
All the jurors felt the same way.
What about any of the expert witnesses for the Commonwealth? Were there any that you think did a good job, and who do you think just did a bad job?
Bad job, clearly. They're calling him Blue Man. Welcher, yeah, Dr. Welcher.
Did they really? I gotta hear that again. Sorry, backing up. I want to live in this moment for a second.
Bad job, clearly. They're calling him Blue Man. Welcher, yeah, Dr. Welcher. I mean, without my respect to his work and his job.
Lol.
I don't think he was trying to hide something or convince us of something. I just think he didn't do a good job. That's it. Maybe his businesses needed to step it up in the game and learn a little more techniques, to spend some more money on things that actually matter than buy a new Lexus.
Yep.
So yeah, it was, to me, felt like a joke, that video that they presented to us to prove that John O'Keefe was hit by a car. I mean, okay, I can put my arm in here and then just wait for a 2-mile car to come. Anyone can do this, and you pay almost $400,000 for that person. So that felt, to me, I felt very uncomfortable.
Aperture Science.
Thank you for voicing that. It made me very happy. Yeah, all those things. Couldn't agree more. Yep, that's right. Yep.
So yeah, he's and his colleague, Mr. Shannon.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't care about his degree. Everybody's talking about how many years to complete a degree or whatever. He has experience. He's been working with this company for 8 years, according to his profile. He made some mistakes, okay. But you know, adding Mr. Welcher and him together, and the amount of money who was paid for them to do a great job, I don't think they did. And credible.
Aperture Science.
Yeah.
Witnesses, the lab, the forensic expertise, the scientists, the DNA people, the people who check his shirt or a piece of DNA on the taillight or not, all this, the people from the state, from the Massachusetts State Police Lab, all of them, I think they work with what was given to them. And they did a good job. I didn't feel they were lying or trying to make up information for us.
And so what about the defense? Who do you think did a good job on the defense side and for making the case, and who do you think didn't help or made it worse?
I don't think anybody on the defense side made it worse. They just corroborate for the things we have listened prior. Dr. La Posada, for me, was very good, and the ARCA witness. I now know that they didn't want us to hear the ARCA professionals.
They sure didn't. They sure didn't. They tried everything. I mean, they tried everything to prevent the defense from putting on a case in many different domains, and to some degree succeeded. But man, like that Aperture thing, man, the Aperture thing with like, oh, the grave concerns. I am still to this day trying to find the issue with the grave concerns. I'm still to this day trying to find the issue. And I'm also trying to find, even assuming the issue exists, why I should care about it. Right? It's like, yeah.
They made it just clear and easy for a regular person like me to understand what really happened with data, with the videos, with the dummy, what the weight of the dummy. That discussion was so unnecessary.
Yeah, no, it's a little much.
Officer Dever, which we can't say her name wrong, she gets really upset.
Lol.
Officer Dever was scary, to say the least, because I mean, I can see she might be a little immature. She's young, she looks young and new in the police force, but she sold a vibe of being so desperate and angry to everyone, like a child complaining and fighting with their mom. I just feel like unsafe to have a person with that level of immaturity carrying a gun among us.
Based. Yeah, I feel that. I feel it. Yeah.
What was your reaction or impression? There were, as you said, there were some state police lab people, there were some state troopers that gave very good testimony, but, you know, Yuri Buchanan, who seemed to me as one person when the Commonwealth was interviewing him and questioning him, and then someone else when the defense was. What was your reaction to Trooper Buchanan's testimony?
With him, I was very close to him, like 2 seats away from him, and
that's scary.
Sometimes I could see him like making a fist, and he was really uncomfortable with some questions, and the sarcastic comments between him and Alan Jackson, entertaining. Felt to me that he was very protective of his job and his colleagues. So this blue wall that I'm learning now what that means. He's probably like a good representative of the blue wall, I think.
Accurate. Yep, that's true. The blue wall is pretty real, man.
And former State Trooper Michael Proctor, who was all over the trial but never appeared. Did you have some sort of image or story about him in your head?
So who is Michael Proctor? Like, I didn't know. I still don't know. I know he gave an interview last night. I'm dying to watch. I don't know. I can't put a name and a face together. All the times in my notebooks I have Michael Proctor, question mark. Where is Michael Proctor? I don't know who he was. I learned he was fired during the trial by some of the witness or lawyers comment. I said, okay, so maybe he's not going to show up because he was fired, and everything he did was bring other troops are bringing up to us. But we didn't know who he was, like as a person.
How did that impact your deliberations for you personally?
I didn't mind not seeing him. Because he was already fired and everybody else did a good job of bringing his role in the investigation to us, I did mind not hear from Brian Higgins and Brian Halbert. I think they should be there.
Okay, fair enough.
When the defense called Proctor's friend to read the texts, the offensive texts, in the last trial, Trooper Proctor testified and he had to read them. And at one point saying the C word, the judge told him, those are
CCC unit.
You have to say them. And the jury was shocked by it. And observers now say it didn't seem that it had the same impact. How was your reaction to hearing the text messages that former Trooper Proctor sent to his friends?
There was some wording that made me feel disgusted and upset. It's not that you don't have the same reaction if it was him reading. It's like just like Karen Reed and Brian Higgins text message. If it was him reading or her, it's not about who is reading. It's about the content. Okay, at that point when that friend came and read all the text messages, we already knew that Michael Proctor was a police officer who was fired, who was being accused of corruption or framed Karen Reed, whatever. So we already expect that something bad would come from this guy. So that's why I think you didn't see a shocking face, a shocking expression on our faces. But what was disgusting, was unprofessional, and just make me think what else, what other cases could be judged like this based on a person appearance or relationship or demeanor, I don't know.
Now this is a little bit of a biased question because you have law training, but looking at the lawyers, who do you think did the best job, even if they didn't win the case, even if they, who would you look forward to getting up to be to ask the questions or do the direct or the cross? Was there one lawyer that you'd be like, oh, this will be interesting? Or I like watching?
I like watching all of them. I like Brennan at the beginning.
Special Prosecutor Hank Brennan.
Hank Brennan, yes. I think he have a bad case. He had an investigation full of holes, and he have to convict her with what he have. I didn't like the way he acted at the end. He felt like he was a little desperate or angry, showing some signs.
I think that's fair, and I think that's a very astute observation. I think that when you're evaluating Brennan, you have to separate the strength of the case from the strength of the lawyer, because whether a lawyer is good is not necessarily the same thing as whether or not their case is good, because a lawyer sometimes has to deal with the cards they're dealt. Now, in the case of a prosecutor, that's a little less forgivable because the prosecutor shouldn't bring cases that are shit. But, you know, if you put aside that problem, right, Brennan was at many times a good lawyer, if perhaps unethical, skeezy, and a lot of other things. Like, there's a lot that you can say that's about him that is positive, or a lot of qualities about him that are admirable. He is obviously intelligent. He has incredible attention to detail. He knows how to get that detail out, and he knows he can find like small points, and he can find small weaknesses. He finds like basically every crack and crevice. He finds basically every way to attack a case or undermine a witness. He knows his case. He knows his witnesses. He is very good in strategic thinking. In terms of again, his organization of the prosecution's case, very good. In the way it flowed. Like, Burgess as a witness kind of sucks. Shouldn't have brought him on. But if you ignore Burgess, like, really good flow of the witnesses, really good laying out of the story in the prosecution's case. I also still like the opening. I thought the opening was very, very good. And he laid it all out. And I thought his strategic use of the clips was incredibly good. So there's a lot about him that is good. He is thorough. He has attention to detail. He's smart. He is tenacious. He is diligent. He's also an unethical scumbag who plays dirty and does despicable things. And particularly as a prosecutor, since he has ethical roles to seek justice, in addition to seeking justice, not just convictions. As a prosecutor in particular, he is a contemptible figure. But there's a lot about Brennan that is good. I just wish he would use those skills for good, or at least use those skills in defense of somebody. Like, for example, I don't know what he did, for example, in the defense of Whitey Bulger. But if he did whatever the equivalent of that was in defense of Whitey Bulger, then God bless him, because that's his fucking job, right? He doesn't have the same duties as a prosecutor when he's the defender. And Whitey Bulger isn't a nice guy, but he deserves a defense just as much as anyone else does. And if he brought those skills to bear in defending Whitey Bulger, then God bless him. That's what he's supposed to do. Less so as the prosecutor, though. Maybe he should just stick to defending people. I don't know.
Kinds of disrespect.
Whitey Bulger lost. I understand that Whitey Bulger lost. What about what I said? Did you not understand what I said? I know Whitey Bulger lost. Why are you saying that? I understand. What are we talking about? What about we have to separate the lawyer from the strength of the case was unclear. I hate my life sometimes.
But his name's
How about Robert Alessi?
Robert Alessi, yes. This is my favorite lawyer because I think the way he talks, like such a gentleman, so kind. At the same time, he's crashing a witness with information. So it was very interesting to watch.
We had a theory for folks who...
Calm down. First of all, don't tell me how to feel. That's not nice. And second of all, I can respond to whatever I want to. Fuck you. But thank you everyone else for tuning in. I appreciate you being here.
We thought on the jury who looked like they liked watching Robert Alessi. People watching at home would say, oh my God, this is boring, this is terrible. And I actually commented that I thought after you saw Bob Alessi a couple of times, you knew if you just stayed with him, there would be a payoff, right? So like the weather, what are we getting to? And finally there was a payoff, right?
Definitely repetitive, trying to get there, but he was trying to get the right information to us in a way we could understand, and we all appreciate that. So it made the technical information easy, the technical witnesses smoother for us to listen to.
And did you know that Alan Jackson was the LA lawyer? Did you have any feelings about watching him? And
Wednesday night after I got home, my uncle, who is an attorney, and we used to live in California, he said that he's a Hollywood lawyer. I said, great, let me look up, and that was it. Because as soon as I finish everything, I just want to follow everybody and start following everyone that was in the trial. But I didn't know, never heard his name before, but I heard he's one of the best lawyers in the country, so what a pleasure to watch him working.
And David Yannetti?
Didn't know before. He didn't take the podium that much, but when he did, he got our attention. He very articulated, and overall, to me, was very interesting having the opportunity to watch these people working and make justice.
What do you hope the message from this trial is? Is there something you hope will change? Is there something you hope people who have plugged in, you know, this is...
Yeah, it's my understanding this juror has been attacked on social media and harassed by people. The anti-Karen Reed contingent is out there, which apparently they have no problem harassing a juror, which, you know, raises serious legal problems, but I digress. Because they're not only saying mean things about her, like in some cases appear to be contacting her directly and things like that, which probably crosses a line in some situations, perhaps a legal line. But like, yeah, I mean, this juror seems pretty lucid. It's like she understood the assignment. My assignment was to figure out whether or not the state proved beyond a reasonable doubt. Like, that's the thing, right? My job is not to figure out whether or not Karen Reed killed John O'Keefe. That is not my job. My job is to figure out whether the state proved it. That is not the same thing. It is not the same thing. Clarity of the question makes you understand things. Like this is also like some of those, the anti-Karen Reed contingent will say things like, oh, Karen Reed has fooled you all. I'm like, no, she hasn't. Karen Reed hasn't fooled me. Karen Reed hasn't fooled me in any way, because the question wasn't believing Karen Reed. That wasn't the question. The question was, has the state proven it beyond a reasonable doubt? That was the question. And I'm like, no. And if you want me to go into reasonable doubts, I can go into them, but why waste the time? So it's like, yeah, it has nothing to do with Karen Reed fooling me. It has everything to do with the state presenting shit. So like, that's the job, man. Yeah, maybe Karen Reed really did kill John O'Keefe, maybe, but if she did, the state fucked it up. And whose fault is that? It's not this juror's fault. It is not this juror's fault. The state fucked it up. It's their fault. You know what I mean?
Entertainment to some people, understandably, but someone died, someone was on trial for murder, families were broken, communities are broken. As you said, there's no justice for John O'Keefe yet. What's something you hope either changes and/or people take away from this experience?
I think if the community in general were able to get together and gather information and support and financial help for Karen Reed in this case, if they were able to do this for her, I think we now have to do the same thing for John O'Keefe and John O'Keefe's family. Corruption, it's not Michael Proctor is a cancer, corruption is a cancer. And I'm from a Latin country. We know Brazil, we had many cases with corruption. I'm from Rio de Janeiro, is one of the most dangerous places in Brazil. And it speaks to me, this case, because it's injustice, it's police, corruption, and how many people are in jail right now because of a bad investigation, because of a bias of a police officer or investigator, because of a bad system, because of lack of money to have good lawyers like Alan Jackson's Bob Alessi. So
this is very true.
So, and Dr. Leroy, I don't want to forget her. She was very spot on. She didn't take the stand, but she was always there with the documents. Like, we found her work incredible. So the message is, let's continue fight for justice for John O'Keefe. We cannot let corruption run the country in any level, police level, government level. We have the power. We are the people, we have the power, and we have to use this power. We need to get away of fake news, get away of no-sense social media, look for the root of the problem, look for real journalists.
$9.99 from Woolman Jughead Jones. Kurt, do you think it would be difficult for a defense lawyer who's been tasked with being a prosecutor to go from, I don't need to prove shit, to I need to prove everything? I don't know if that would necessarily be difficult or not. I don't know. But in any event, yeah, I don't think the problem was that Brennan misunderstood his need to prove things. I think the problem is the police fucked it up, right? He can only play the cards he's dealt, right? So I don't think the problem is that Brennan was deficient because he doesn't understand he needs to prove things. I think he was just unable to prove things because there wasn't he didn't have the cards. You can only play the hand you're dealt, man. You know what I mean? Thank you for the super chat.
Real news, real information, and fight, and continue fighting, continue complaining, and protest, and do what needs to be done for a better society. I have young children, so I wanted them to grow up in a better place, in a safer place.
Do you have a message for the news media?
Yeah, you guys suck balls. Oh, that's probably not what this juror is going to say, but, okay.
Please. Don't lie. Don't create stories.
Based. 499 said, we're all Karen Reed. I'm so here for you playing Aperture Science, Jingo. It makes me laugh every time.
Aperture Science.
Yeah, how many more times are we going to hear the jingle? Probably not too many more times. Oh, well, it was nice while it lasted, but nice to have it on thing. Yeah. Please stop making up stories and please stop lying, news media. That is the greatest answer I've ever heard to that question ever. In fact, I'm going to rewind it so I can hear it some more.
So the message is, let's continue fight for justice for John O'Keefe. We cannot let corruption run the country in any level, police level, government level. We have the power. We are the people, we have the power, and we have to use this power. We need to get away of fake news, get away of no-sense social media, look for the root of the problem, look for real journalists, real news, real information, and fight, and continue fighting, continue complaining, and protest, and do what needs to be done for a better society. I have young children, so I wanted them to grow up in a better place, in a safer place.
Do you have a message for the news media?
Please, don't lie, don't create stories. And make people confused and make one side against another angry and create unnecessary fights, unnecessary discussion. Why are we discussing? We are online arguing, wasting our times about the seat of Paul Kiev. You know, why is that relevant? A person died, and another one's about to go to jail for no reason. Be more responsible, and it doesn't worth it for you guys to get a word and the news out there and the likes for it if it's not true.
And what about social media?
That was the most based answer to that question I've ever heard in my life, man. That is just the greatest answer. Please stop telling lies. Outstanding.
Users, do you have a word for them?
Look for good journalists. Go to court, go see yourself, you know, watch the TV court 7 hours trial and take make your own conclusions. Don't just listen from other people.
Do you have anything else that I missed? Anything you want to say that I didn't cover?
No, it's all good. I just want to, again, I come out to talk about this because I just wanted the O'Keefe family know that it's not our fault. We don't want John O'Keefe to we don't want his case to die. None of us, I can speak for all the jurors, we all felt really bad for the family. We all believe John was a great man, and we all want the justice to be served to him too and his family. And the right person goes pay for this, because a person died, and whoever did or whatever happened need to come out.
Well, thank you for reaching out to me. I'm really thrilled to meet you after watching you for 40 days, too.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Like I said, I choose the people I want to talk to. You were one of them because I saw your reports. I couldn't see everything, but from what I saw, you have like a true impression of us. You were more spot on. You really saw us for, you really report what was happening there. Wasn't just like creating stories for likes. So that's why I reached out.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Paul. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Okay, that was a very, very good interview. I enjoyed that very much. That was a very nice extended interview, and we got some a little bit more insight into juror number 11. So I am definitely here for all that, and I'm glad that we did that. So I'll make sure to see if there's any super chats, and then I think we'll probably wrap up the stream. Chicken Shite for $2 said, I like Brandon. There are things that are things about him that are likable. Yeah, not so much at the end, but a little bit. Yeah. Vaskar sent 5 gift memberships. Neat Noodle became an uncivilian. Pelosas Mom has been a member for 10 months. Lopez 42 been a member for 36 months. Vaskar member for a month. And Patty B has been a member for 18 months. And I believe those are all the super chats that came in today. So are there any sort of final thoughts before we wrap up the stream here? See what is going on here in chat. Or is there other interviews we should be discussing? I think we covered basically everything at this point. There might be other interviews out there that I'm unaware of, though. Or are things you guys want to talk about? Jennifer C says, I think it's possible he slipped and fell. Very much so. Have I watched the Jury 4 person? No, I'm not aware of an interview with the Jury 4 person. Okay, let's see if we can figure out where that is and cover that. That sounds like fun. Can you tell me where to look? That'd be helpful. Jessica Kondo interview? Well, can you tell me where to look to find these interviews so that I don't have to Google them around? Slip and fall doesn't explain dog wounds? Yeah, if the dog came up after he slept and fell, it does. The 4-purse Foreman print media? All right, let me see if I can find it then. Jessica Kondo interview? Let's see if I can find it. Boston 25, thank you. I do not see any interview with the jury foreperson on Boston 25. So no. Reddit has it. Okay. Can you be more specific? Which subreddit? Boston Herald website. Okay. So I'm doing my best. No, I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best to find it. Where do you want me to look, Dana? Just tell me. Just tell me where exactly to look and I'll go there. This is what happens when I have to hunt for things. It takes time and it's a pain in the ass. Boston Herald? Okay, I'm looking at Boston Herald. I'm trying to find it as we speak. r/Karen retrial? Okay. You pasted the link. You can't paste the link in YouTube. I don't allow pasted links. So we don't allow links. So you can't paste the link. All right. Jury foreperson breaks the trial. All right. Let's check this one. Okay. All right, cool. Let's give this a shot. Karen Reed jury foreperson breaks silence after grueling retrial. Juror number 1, the foreperson of the Karen Reed retrial, told the Boston Herald there was no aha moment in the grueling case that he said wasted taxpayers' money on paper-thin evidence that failed to bring any comfort to the victim's family. Truth. The unforgivable fact that investigators didn't swarm the house at the murder scene on 34 Fairview in Canton during the nor'easter was shoddy work and a blatant red flag, the foreperson added. That's why the only guilty finding was the drunk driving. If that body was on my front steps, I know my house would have been swarmed, the juror, who was black and grew up in Jamaican Plains, said. Yep, a little bit, right? A little bit, yes. The text from Trooper Proctor, bitch, and also C-word, also showed serious bias, yet I had to put my personal opinion aside. It all seemed like a lot of wishy-washy privilege, the foreperson said. We had to look at the evidence and it didn't make a lot of sense. There was no meat, no aha moment. No one proved there was a collision, even with all that jargon, and all the jurors agreed. Facts. The juror, who asked that his name not be revolved, spoke with the Herald by telephone late Friday along with his wife. The couple has 3 children and they've come painfully close to crimes before. The juror said he knew Zarnoff, who along with his brother detonated 2 bombs at the finish line at the marathon of April 2013, and the bombing victim. He knew the Boston bombers? Wow, small world, man. Plus, his wife was working at MIT the night campus cop Sean Collier was executed by Zarnoff, who would soon engage in a deadly firefight with police in nearby Watertown that only ended in Tarumlin's death and Zarkoff's capture. His wife took a train home, avoiding any trouble. The juror said he works with at-risk youth in Dorchester and met the man and young Martin while working at a charter school in the city. Based. We said, of course. I was then picked for the Karen Reed juror, the couple added together over the phone, sharing the irony. The juror said he's still struggling with the whirlwind case, and at times he'd gaze over at the victim, John O'Keefe's mother, who would wipe away tears when images were shown of the Boston police officer with his head split open. Yeah, I bet that was really hard for everybody, to be honest. Still, he added the jury couldn't lock up Reed, the officer's girlfriend, on the measly evidence presented. The foreperson added the jury's announcement of the verdict on Wednesday that was suddenly pulled back was over one male juror who had doubts. At lunch, I asked the juror, "Are you okay?" He said, "Do you think I could take back my vote?" Other jurors got a little nervous, the four-person ad, but 20 minutes later, he said, "Okay, guilty of the DWI." It was the only charge they agreed on and the only clear evidence without doubt. "We only went with what was presented in front of us," the panel said, of 7 women and 5 men. "I'm still asking, where is justice for John?" Another juror speaking out after the verdict said she's disgusted with how much taxpayer money the Commonwealth has poured into the case and how the John O'Keefe family is still seeking justice. Walpole resident Paul Prado said she felt deeply for the former family. "It's not our fault that she didn't find who killed John O'Keefe," Prado said in an interview with the Howard Carr show. "The Commonwealth and the investigator, they couldn't prove that was Karen Reed. For us, we had enough reasonable doubt it wasn't her and we couldn't convict her of anything." I mean, yeah, I mean, that is basically the goal, man. That is the thing, man, for sure. "I really hope the O'Keefes can find out who actually killed John O'Keefe," she added, "and the DA reopens the case. There's no way that's going to happen. And things go from there. I'll be following. I'll be watching closely. It broke my heart to see family in court that day." All that Morrissey has said since the jury delivered the verdict is a 4-word statement provided to the media saying the jury has spoken. You didn't like what they had to say now, did you? You weren't able to pin it on the girl despite your best efforts. How sad. How very sad for you. Reed, who's 45 in Mansfield, faced up to life in prison if convicted of second-degree murder, the top-level offense. She is also charged with manslaughter, DUI, and leaving the scene of the accident. Prosecutors accused Reed of backing up into her boyfriend with her SUV, leaving him to freeze and die on the yard where the pair is supposed to. 1999's from Larissa Harris. "Hey, hi, Kurt. Pull up a clip and chat with potential new DA speaking out against Morrissey to resign. It's short. You should see it." Okay. Well, provide me the clip in my Discord and I'll pull it up. That sounds fair. So provide me the clip in Discord and I'll pull it up. That sounds fun. Okay. Let's see. But Pareto and the jury didn't buy the argument. In a radio interview on Friday, she said the hefty price tag when the prosecuting Reed baffled her and the jurors. Pareto specifically pointed out the $400,000 spent on Aperture
Science.
an accident reconstruction company the Commonwealth pulled 2 witnesses from. Both testified that Reed's Lexus LX570 likely struck O'Keefe at around 12:32 in the morning of the death. Special prosecutor Hank Brand's paycheck of at least $250,000 for the retrial also caught Pareto's eye. "Every time we got on the bus, essentially in the beginning, we thought, how much money is the city and state putting in the police following us, the bus and everything? It bothers me a lot." Yeah, I mean, between both trials, the investigators, the security, the court staff, the Aperture
Science.
This case for the prosecution cost millions and millions and millions of dollars. Reed's defense countered that O'Keefe made it inside the home on Fairview and was killed by others inside, including possible then homeowner Brian Albert, who was a fellow Boston police officer. He'd argued the well-connected police family that worked with local and state police officers covered up the crime. Yeah, quite possibly all those things for sure, yeah. When asked whether Pareto had formed a theory about O'Keefe's death, she responded that she does, suggesting that Reed maybe clipped him with her SUV based on the data from Aperture. The scratches on O'Keefe's arm, Pareto said, did not appear to come from brake and taillight, but rather from the dog. Yep. About the Albert's German Shepherd named Chloe. "Something happened inside the house," Pareto said. "What is it? I don't know. I don't understand why the Alberts didn't come out and why the dog didn't bark. Those were holes we can't fill in." Truth. The Alberts and the key prosecution witness, most of whom were not called to stand in the retrial, but testified as the first trial, said they didn't see John O'Keefe enter the house early that morning. $5 from DA Bob, 03. If the Commonwealth reopens, couldn't the new defendant just say you try to re-rail Karen? Was to say this isn't? Yeah, I mean, the easiest way for any future defense lawyer to defend anyone from killing John O'Keefe would just be to just regurgitate the state's case verbatim. That's what I would do. If I were a defense lawyer defending someone for killing John O'Keefe. I just take the state case and make it the defense's case, and Bob's your uncle. I'd call all those witnesses again and be like, yep, isn't this what you said the first time? Yep, you got it, ma'am. Let's see. The Albertson Key prosecution witness, most of whom not called to stand in the retrial but testified in the first trial, said they didn't kill O'Keefe. They said they didn't see O'Keefe enter the home early that morning. Judge Beverly Cannoni barred the prosecution and defense from directly referencing the FBI. Pareto said she realized early on the FBI had been involved, but wasn't something they took into consideration. Greg S. for $2 says the most expensive DWI in history. You bet your ass. You bet your ass. This is the most expensive DUI conviction in U.S. and possibly world history at this point. It's got to be, right? It's got to be some kind of record, man. Put it in Guinness, man. I'll tell you what. Pareto said her thoughts about Brennan changing throughout the trial and said she can't judge him as a lawyer because the case had awful full of holes. She also said that she felt Cannoni, despite being very nice, gave too much protection to the prosecution with numerous objections. Yeah, a little bit, for sure, 100%. Pareto took a shot at Boston police officer Kelly Deaver, who was a member of the Canton Police Department at the time of death. Defense attorney Alan Jackson quoted Deaver on initially telling the feds she saw Brian Higgins and then Canton police chief enter the police department garage and spent a wildly long time with the SUV. This will give credence to the defense theory that police meddled with the evidence, including the busted taillight whose pieces were later found at the crime scene. Deaver later recanted the statement as a false memory after being shown a timeline of the events that proved it wasn't possible. Pareto called Deaver not believable at all. It was uncomfortable to watch her behavior because she's an officer after all, and she's among us, and she carries a gun. How many jurors are going to bring out the fact that this woman carries a gun as being scary, man? Apparently that was something else the jury unanimously agreed on. Apparently they also unanimously agreed that Deaver carrying a gun scares the shit out of them. Based. She was not reliable and scary. No, she's holding a weapon. Since her first interview with independent journalist Jessica Macado on Thursday, Pareto has been the subject of accusations from internet trolls. Maybe we'll see if we can find that interview, this Jessica Macado interview with the juror. Maybe we'll see if we can find that. She addressed them during her interview on the Howard Carr show. They're all saying, how come she's an attorney and was picked for the jury? She's a liar. Oh, I think we probably saw that interview then. No, I'm not an attorney in the U.S. I'm an attorney in Brazil, never worked here, never licensed here. And how come she loves true crime but didn't know about the case? There's a lot of true crime stuff? I don't know. Because of all my interests was Brazilian for my country, my social media account is in Portuguese. I didn't really know about the case. I thought Turtle Boy was an environmental problem. Karen Reed was just a lady. Facts. Facts. The stay-at-home mother to 4 children called the power given to her to decide Reed's fate a great and huge responsibility she is happy to be part of and happy to serve justice. I'm really happy that I'm confident Karen Reed isn't going to jail. She isn't going to pay for something she didn't do. It filled me with joy and filled me with anger the fact that we don't know what happened to John O'Keefe. Based. Very good. All right, cool. Let's watch this statement from this person who wants to be the new DA. The new DA has the new exciting DA has some thoughts they'd like to share relating to that. So let's watch this statement and see what this has to say.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Juna Perkins, and I'm running for Norfolk County District Attorney in September of 2026. This morning, I called for the resignation of District Attorney Michael Morrissey, and I want to tell you why. Yesterday, a Norfolk County jury found Karen Reed not guilty for the death of John O'Keefe in a case that captured international attention. A Boston police officer, family member, and friend of so many is dead. Meanwhile, the erosion of trust caused by this disastrous prosecution resulted in a crisis with an impact that extends far beyond the borders of Norfolk County. I want to highlight a few important points. First, no experienced prosecutor would ever have charged Karen Reed with second-degree murder in the absence of stronger evidence about how John O'Keefe died and in light of compelling evidence that Reed was too intoxicated to form the intent required to convict her of murder. Charging someone without a good faith basis to believe the Commonwealth can meet the high standard of proof beyond a reasonable doubt is simply unethical. I've not spoken to a single current or former prosecutor, not one of my former colleagues, who believed the evidence supported this charge. 2. DA Morrissey's publication prior to the trial of a video in which he publicly vouched for the credibility of his police investigators, including now disgraced Trooper Michael Proctor, violated the Massachusetts Rules of Professional Conduct for prosecutors. This is unconscionable behavior for a district attorney. 3. DA Morrissey knew or should have known of Trooper Michael Proctor's unethical and biased behavior prior to the first trial, and he failed to take appropriate remedial action to prevent Proctor's conduct from jeopardizing the O'Keefe prosecution and other criminal investigations like the murder of Anna Walsh in Cohasset. 4. The district attorney's $14 million budget after salaries leaves only $2.7 million for all other operational expenses, including rent, utilities, equipment for 144 full-time employees, and direct case expenses. The district attorney has spent more than 1/3 of his entire annual operating budget for the special prosecutor and expert witnesses on the retrial alone.
That feels like a very out of whack allocation of funds, right? What was that, $16 million, and 14 of them were just spending on salaries? I mean, that doesn't leave a lot of money for other things, man. That feels pretty out of whack. That feels pretty out of whack. I think I'd want to have more in reserve for other things like expert witnesses and, you know, scientific testing. And yeah, that proportion feels out of whack. That doesn't feel like a good allocation of funds, man. Lord have mercy. There's a Juror 12 interview in Discord. Excellent. Looking forward to seeing that in a second. Let's finish this off first.
Rather than reassessing the evidence after the first trial and seeking a more pragmatic outcome in line with the evidence that would free up resources for other cases, DA Morrissey doubled and tripled down on using every resource possible to prove he was right rather than seeking justice. 5. In the past few years, Norfolk County has been the site of an alarming number of high-priority cases, aside from the death of John O'Keefe. The sexual exploitation and murder of Sandra Birchmore, the murder of Anna Walsh in Cohasset, and the recent hate-motivated attack on a kosher grocery store in Brookline. There have been 2 apparent murder-suicides in Norfolk County recently, a man in Dover who allegedly murdered his whole family when bankruptcy loomed, and another just last weekend in Milton. In another case, a man allegedly shot the mother of his child just a few months ago.
You know, this is being a bit of a dick, but this woman has a mirrored video, so I guess it isn't only the police that sometimes have mirrored video. Lol. Sorry, that was a cheap shot. That was a cheap shot.
Milton. And every day in Norfolk County, kids struggle with bullying and sexual exploitation at school. District Attorney Morrissey's exclusive focus on the prosecution of Karen Reed has come at the expense of all these other families and of other efforts that could have been made to prevent crime in our community. 6. Worst of all, Morrissey's decisions in the Karen Reed case gave John O'Keefe's family false hope about the outcome. For 3 years, the family of John O'Keefe has patiently hoped and waited for the promised outcome, riding the emotional roller coaster of every new scandal and facing conflict at the courthouse every day for months at a time, only to have their hopes for justice dashed not once, but twice. Beyond the grief from the death itself, this experience in the criminal justice system causes devastating emotional harm. The job of the district attorney is to empower victims of crime, not to make them pawns in the district attorney's quest for validation. District Attorney Morrissey's conduct can only be explained by incompetence or ego. Neither have any place in a district attorney's office. It's time for Morrissey to go. Thank you for listening. I'm Juna Perkins, and I'm running for district attorney.
All right. Thank you, Juna. Very, very good statement. Someone needs to replace Morrissey. I'm not sure whether or not it's you, but someone needs to replace Morrissey. Literally anybody at this point. Almost literally anybody would be preferable to Morrissey. All right. So apparently there's another interview from a juror or something. So we're going to see what there's going on here.
Ben, good evening.
All right, let's see what this is.
Unlike the first two jurors that we've heard from who rendered their verdict of not guilty for Karen Read, this one, juror number 12, says during those 20 hours of deliberations, she changed her mind.
I felt like if they didn't pick me, they'd be fools because I didn't know anything about this case.
Personal trainer Janet Jimenez says before this second trial of Karen Read, one of her clients had mentioned the case, but she says other than that, she'd never heard of it. When she was picked to be juror number 12, she suddenly had a front row seat.
I couldn't help but see her because I was right. I mean, I think I had the best view in the house. She was right there. The defense was right there.
Did you form any impressions of her?
No, like I said, I knew nothing about her.
Jimenez says she filled a notebook and a half as she listened to witnesses and studied evidence over 8 weeks. She says when it came time for deliberations, she was open to listening to what the other 11 jurors had to say.
I was hoping that my fellow jurors could help me to go through all of this. So I went in with a very open mind, but definitely leaning toward that she was guilty.
Jimenez says what changed her mind is when she went looking for something in the more than 200 pieces of evidence. She won't say what that something was, but says she didn't find it.
And it was one big part that led me closer to there's a lot of doubt here.
Jimenez says there were holes in the investigation, but she stopped short of saying she believes someone else killed John O'Keefe or that there was a police cover-up.
I'm not there to say the defense's story was right or wrong. Do you know what I'm saying? Because there could have been other circumstances that happened.
Right.
So I think there was things that we saw, things that we heard, the evidence that could have fit that scenario. So again, that's the whole doubt thing.
I mean, yeah, it's not your job to figure out whether the defense is right. Your job is to figure out whether the state has proven each and every element. So, like, fair enough, man. It's like, yeah, I don't know, man. Not my job. I appreciate that. Yep, fair enough. Do they get to keep their notebooks? I don't believe they do. I'm pretty positive they're taken and seized after the case is over. I think I'm pretty positive they don't get to keep their notebooks, which is very sad. But yeah, I'm pretty sure they're taken and shredded. So no eBay jury notebooks for you. Very, very disappointing. I wonder if there's a case to be made though under some sort of law though. This would actually be an interesting issue because of there's like a copyright issue in there somewhere, like because by the very fact of writing it down, it becomes copyright, and so like is there a seizure case to be made in there somewhere because they stole my notebook? It was worth money. I don't know, man. Maybe there's a case to be made in there somewhere. It could be fun for the stupid. Wouldn't it be destruction of court documents? Well, no, not really. They're separate and apart from court documents. It's not unheard of in many jurisdictions that they're shredded. That's actually, I think, fairly typical practice. So no, because they're not part of the official record. They're not part of the official record. So it's not, no. Yeah, the notebooks are not part of the record. There's not a copyright case. Well, I don't know. I'm an IP lawyer, Monica. I'm literally an IP lawyer. So I'm like, well, copyright attaches the moment it's fixed into a tangible medium. So by the very act of writing it, they get a copyright interest in it because it's fixed in a tangible medium. And so there's something there that seems like an interesting idea. I've only been a lawyer for 20 years, man. Jesus Christ. Monica says no. Okay, well, that's persuasive. Monica gets timed out. You can come back tomorrow when you learn how to behave. You're timed out for a day. Thanks for being here. All right. A juror on the Karen Read murder trial who went deliberations leaning towards a guilty verdict spoke out Friday and explained why her mind was changed. The jury of 7 women and 5 men decided Wednesday that Read was not guilty of second-degree murder and manslaughter in the 2012 death of her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, and the Boston police officer. Read was found not guilty of a lesser charge of operating under the influence of alcohol. Will she get her car back? Yes. Probably as is. But yes, she gets her car back. I believe she was contacted and said you can pick up your car tomorrow. As is, with the center console ripped out and everything. But yes, Yes, she can get her car back in its current enjoyable condition. Yes. Along with any other evidence that her personal property, if there is such evidence. So she could get all that back. Can she sue for damages after the fact for the taillight? No, she cannot. That there's no cause of action in that, sadly. News Center 9, David Beckett sat down with James Jimenez, juror number 12. Felt like they didn't pick me, they'd be fools because I didn't know anything about the case. Okay, I think this is just like basically a summary. I couldn't help but see her. I mean, I think I had the best view in the house because she was right there. The fence was right there. Did you form any impressions of her? No, like I said, I knew nothing about her. Yeah, so this is basically just a transcript. I was hoping my fellow jurors could help me get through all it, so I was with a very open mind, but definitely leaning towards guilty. And then she went to find some piece of evidence and couldn't find it, and so maybe she thought there was evidence. You know, that sounds like what happened, right? So she thought there was some kind of evidence, and her jurors like, that evidence doesn't exist. And then she went to go look for it, and she couldn't find it. And she's like, oh, okay, well then, you know, not so much. So, you know, fair enough. Fair enough. All right, so we've got like this one. Rose wants me to play this video from 11 months ago and then another one from after the verdict. So we'll play those two videos and see what those have to share. You know, I love it when I'm like, you know, maybe there's an issue somewhere. Maybe there's something to be had, and someone's just like, no, there's no possible issue. I'm like, well, probably not, but you know, it's an intellectual exercise. And then like, you know, whatever. Can someone subpoena the jurors' notes? No. And also they've almost certainly been destroyed, so they don't exist. You can't subpoena what doesn't exist. Yeah.
It has already been a long road to justice for John O'Keefe's loved ones. He was found dead in a snowbank back in 2022 in January. Karen Reed was arrested 4 days later. But those loved ones waited through years of court hearings before the trial started April 29th. And after 8 weeks of testimony, the jury couldn't reach a verdict. Prosecutors say there will be another trial. WBZ's Julie McDonald is live in Canton, where this all began. And Julie, I know you have more on how a retrial will or could unfold.
Well, Lisa, tonight when
JC Family says, I remember when you started this case, you were very negative towards Karen. And I was like, has this guy watched the first trial? Yes, I literally watched every single moment of the first trial. I don't think I was negative towards Karen. I think people misunderstand me. And because I think sometimes they misunderstand like what perspective I'm speaking from. Because sometimes I'll change, like, sometimes I'm not speaking necessarily for myself. Sometimes I'm expressing I'm trying to express like a more objective view. Or I'm trying to express views from a different perspective. So like, I was never negative towards Karen. Like because I watched the first trial, I thought the case against her was garbage fuel. Now, I also thought that Brennan did a very good opening. I also thought that Brennan strategically laid out his witnesses very well. I also thought that he marshaled the idea of the confession admission incredibly well. I also thought that, you know, that by not bringing in the bad things, that, you know, there was less detrimental to his case. And I believe at the end of the state's case, I said, well, no, it would have been before Burgess. Before Burgess, I said 66% chance to convict. After Burgess, I forget what I said. I said, I think maybe 60%. And I think I went down. I forget where I sort of was at the end of the state's case, but I don't remember where I was, if I thought it was more likely than not by conviction. But like, I never was negative towards Karen Reed. That's just not fair. That's not what I thought. So yeah, but trying to evaluate the strength of the case from what's being presented. Yeah. I mean, ultimately I wound up at 20% at the very end. I was trying to think where I was at the end of the state's case in chief, like where I was at that point was what I meant. I'm not quite sure. Yeah.
I spoke with retired Judge Jack Lew. He told me he found this to be really quick for a mistrial in terms of how long the jury deliberated. At the same time, he said throughout his career as a judge, he saw many juror notes, read many juror questions. He said he never saw a note like this one today, one so insightful of the gravity of their roles.
Concerning the speed at which that notice came from the DA's office that they're going to retry the case, my head's still spinning. It was so fast that I would think they're not going to back down.
Retired Massachusetts Superior Court Judge Jack Lew said the Commonwealth.
Oh, you can't see the video. I'm sorry. My fault. I'm being a bad streamer. You can't see the video. I'm sorry. My fault.
Long road to justice for John O'Keefe's loved ones. He was found dead in a snowbank back in 2022 in January. Karen Reed was arrested 4 days later, but those loved ones waited through years of court hearings before the trial started April 29th, and after 8 weeks of testimony, the jury couldn't reach a verdict. Prosecutors say there will be another trial. WBZ's Julie McDonald is live in Canton, where this all began. And Julie,
this is obviously after the first trial, by the way. This is 11 months ago, just in case it wasn't clear. So
I know you have more on how a retrial will or could unfold.
Well, Lisa, tonight when I spoke with retired Judge Jack Lew, he told me he found this to be really quick for a mistrial in terms of how long the jury deliberated. At the same time, he said throughout his career as a judge, he saw many juror notes, read many juror questions. He said he never saw a note like this one today, one so insightful of the gravity of their roles.
Concerning the speed at which that notice came from the DA's office that they're going to retry the case, my head's still spinning. It was so fast that I would think they're not going to back down.
Retired Massachusetts Superior Court Judge Jack Lew said the Commonwealth's quick recommitment to the case and Judge Canoni's July status conference scheduled show a highly motivated effort to set a Karen Reed retrial in motion. But the hung jury helps the defense in their chances on appeal.
You might have a mini appeals process where it's not given full consideration, maybe delay of a couple of months if there is one, or if you had a full appeals process, it could delay a trial a year or more.
In a second trial, you could expect to see the same faces, the same lawyers, many of the same witnesses, and even the same charges. Lew said the DA's immediate announcement of a retrial doesn't signal compromise. So without a verdict this time, were there any winners?
Anytime the defendant is not dragged out of the courtroom in chains.
Would the notebooks be work product for the jury? I like that idea that it's work product for the jury. That's a very interesting idea. I don't think it quite works, but I like it as a counter argument that the jury's notebooks become work product because they're in the employ of the government. And so that they become the copyright of the thing. That's interesting. Under copyright law, for it to be considered a work for hire, though, there has to be a writing attesting to the work for hire, which I don't think this would qualify. But I like the argument. This is creative. See, now you're playing with me. Now you're playing with me. This is much better. I like that you're playing my game. It's like, oh, maybe it's work product. I like this. This is great. Now we're having fun.
Is a win for the defense.
And does that mean a loss for the prosecution without even a single conviction?
Maybe it's a temporary loss. Sometimes you lose the battle and you come back and win the war.
They did not win the war.
And Judge Lew did tell me that in his own personal experience that he's seen, the prosecution usually wins on a retrial because of a hung jury. But he did some research tonight and said that social science suggests the opposite to be true. If we've learned anything, there are no guarantees. Live in Canton tonight,
Well, that was incredibly uninformative. Thank you, former judge. Once again, why am I not a judge is a question that is percolating in my mind. You know, it's like, how am I not more qualified than these people? That's what I want to know. All right, let's watch this. Let's watch this one. This is a second video. Let's watch this.
Ken, we want to bring in Judge Lew again because Cheryl and...
Oh, good. We get to hear from Judge Lew again. How exciting. I liked hearing from him the first time so much. Now I get to hear from him a second time. Exciting. Exciting.
Maybe you can ask the question. There has been a lot of confusion over the verdict slip. First trial, this trial, to the point where yesterday, not only did the jury have a question about it, but they had to make an amended verdict slip.
Right.
Does this change things going forward? Are we going to come up with a new system where we can make things a little bit more clear?
You know, that's a good question.
You know, not for nothing, but a lot of states have much more detailed jury forms. I've seen it like spelled out before in like, it actually like spells it out with paragraph instructions. Like, if you find this, then stop here. If not, proceed to part 3B, you know, like a goddamn tax form. You know, it's like I've seen it in a lot more detail where it's spelled out in sometimes somewhat excruciating detail. And over here, we're just like, well, check one of these boxes and hope you get the right one, I guess, man. Damn. Even the clerk fucked it up. That's how bad it is. That's how bad it is. Even the clerk, when he was reading the verdict, fucked it up because of how confusing it was. That's how you know how fucked up it is. When the clerk can't get it right, things are going poorly.
I mean, so the fact that it's come up a couple of times now in this case, both trials, maybe this is time. You know, there is no case law that supported what the defense wanted the judge to do, and she said that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not an opportunity to make changes if you notice that something isn't working that maybe had been working in the past. So it's a good question for the judge. You know, he's sat on so many of these cases. So, Judge, what do you think about that?
Yeah, Travis said last night they said an intern came up with the defense form. It looks like a 5th or 7th Circuit pattern verdict form. Yeah, I mean, yeah, basically, like, I mean, he probably didn't invent it. And like, because that would be a reasonable thing to do, right? It's like, well, I'm looking for jury verdict forms, so what am I going to do, right? I'm going to go start scouring other jurisdictions and see if I can find one I like. Which, you know, is a perfectly reasonable thing to do, both as an attorney and a judge. And, you know, for that matter, judges, of course, borrow law from other jurisdictions. You know, we talk about persuasive authority. So in trying to figure out what I should do, you know, sometimes you look and you try to find, has anyone done it better? Can I learn something from somebody else? This is, yeah, the dirty secret, the really dirty secret is that lawyers don't believe plagiarism is a problem so much as a pastime. We copy the absolute shit out of each other. We absolutely copy the absolute shit out of each other. Don't tell anyone our secrets. Our secrets are cut and paste. Don't tell anybody. But yeah, but we copy the absolute shit out of each other. We find something we like and like, yoink, mine. Yeah, you better bet your ass. So the fact that this intern working for the defense scoured something and found some jury forms he liked and then borrowed, stole, you know, good artists borrow, great artists steal. Yeah, 100%. 100%, man. Let's go to the beginning of this thing.
Been a lot of confusion over the verdict slip. First trial, this trial, to the point where yesterday, not only did the jury have a question about it, but they had to make an amended verdict slip.
Yeah. Please don't ask me to say that whether or not this is my original work. That won't end well, right? Exactly. 100%, Travis. You know it.
Does this change things going forward? Are we going to come up with a new system where we can make things a little bit more clear?
You know, that's a good question. I mean, so the fact that it's come up a couple of times now in this case, both trials, maybe this is time. You know, there is no case law that supported what the defense wanted the judge to do, and she said that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not an opportunity to.
We could invent new law.
Something is.
We can always make something up.
We had been working in the past, so it's a good question for the judge. You know, he's sat on so many of these cases. So, Judge, what do you think about?
Oh God.
I don't have an ESP, but I'll suggest that any change will not be an order from on high from the Supreme Judicial Court, because there's no case queued up to go up to the Supreme Judicial Court on this issue. But it might seep its way into continuing education that mass trial judges get a lot of. From two different organizations. So they may well discuss this in their continuing education and just informally make changes to verdict slips.
And Judge, it obviously very difficult to talk about another judge's decisions, right? The deep respect that you have for one another. Did you have any problem with the way this was handled? Because over the past couple of days, mainly from people who were super passionate about the case, they felt very strongly that here we go again. It's just not clear enough, especially for 12 civilians who were pulled off the street with no legal background. Did you have any issues with the way that was handled? Do you think that things could have been done differently to make sure that they never went through this confusing process?
I actually think the judge handled it perfectly. I don't think that's a big deal. I could nitpick over a few things here and there.
Could you? Could you nitpick over a few things? I can nitpick over a few things too, Your Honor.
There in the 7-week plus trial, but the verdict slips, in my view, were fine.
Sure, why not?
The defense really threw everything, including the kitchen sink, at the judge. The judge did remarkably well with all the things that they did. Personally, I'm not sure I would have had the state police doing crowd control, where the state police are a key issue in the case, but that's all water under the bridge.
So, Judge, I know that, we were talking about the questions that came into the jury yesterday. A lot of folks at home were really thinking, why couldn't she answer that question?
Apparently, I should have gone up there to try to find a wife, I guess. Damn, man. I mean, it turned out to just be a singles party, I guess. I missed out on that opportunity. Oh, well, maybe next time.
Question when they said, we have what if we had a verdict on 2 of the charges, but we're deadlocked on 1 charge? Does that mean we're a hung jury? And she said, I can't answer that question. And, a lot of folks were saying, well, why can't she answer that? Why can't she just say, no, you can deliver a partial verdict? And you and I talked about this yesterday afternoon, and you said that the judge has a very different responsibility once the jury starts deliberating.
Yeah, it's complicated, but it's critical to the public's understanding. Once the jury is deliberating, the judge's role changes. The judge becomes more of a potted plant, and that is because the jury worships the judge. In the slightest little thing that the judge says can push them with exaggerated effect towards some result, and that's wrong. So by even discussing a hypothetical question, it could push them toward or away from whatever's in the hypothetical question. She did it exactly right. It would have been problematic for her to do it in any other way.
And the judge really, at this point, this is Courtney Cole, Judge Lou, the judge really at this point, it seems like she was very careful when they came back with these questions to remind them, you all have the evidence. It is your job to make this decision. I can't make these decisions for you. They had a very specific question yesterday about the time frame for the operating under the influence charge. And when they came back and they asked, it was their very first question, they wanted to get into specifics about the 12:45 a.m. on January 29th, 2022, when Reed left Fairview Road, but that's when the judge came back. And I think for us watching at home, it's interesting because you expect the judge to be able to give a more direct answer. But to your point, Judge Lou, the judge told them, you have all of the evidence laid out. I can't make this decision for you. And I think that was interesting for viewers to hear at home who've been watching the case.
Yeah, anytime on the date on the indictment, the jurors have the originals of the indictments. Anytime on that day is convictable. And Mr. Brennan made one of the few missteps of his magnificent trying of this case. He said, give a time frame. That's incorrect, unless there's a bill of particulars, and there was not in this case that I can recall. So the judge, there is no time frame. It could be at 4 a.m. if it's on the right date on the indictment. It's not the judge's role to intrude on what the jury decides.
And one of the other things that I think a lot of folks asked as well is,
sir, do you know how a lesser included works? Do you know how a lesser included works, sir? Why do I know better than the judge how a lesser included works? Why do I understand this better than he does? Make it make sense. Please make it make sense. Why do I understand better than Judge Lou what a lesser included is? That's depressing. I hate it.
You know, the judge decides what the sentence is once the verdict is read. Once they deliver a verdict, if it's a conviction, the judge determines the sentence based on a sentencing report and on recommendations by the prosecution and the defense. And the jury has nothing to do with that, right?
They have zero to do with that. And it actually relates to your first question.
I mean, it's not really that hard. I mean, it's a little bit just on the label. It's lesser and it's included. It's like, yeah, what is a lesser included? It's like, it's just on the label. It's less and included. If it's not less and included, it's not a lesser. Okay. It'll be fine, Kurt. They can't hurt you anymore.
The jury cannot be concerned with results or with outcomes or anything like that. The juror's responsibility is to speak the truth. Did they prove this case according to the jury instructions? It is not the jury's responsibility to give a result that is just. It is their responsibility to say, here's the truth about what happened. And then somebody else will decide the sentence if the defendant is convicted.
So in so many of these cases that, you know, that we've seen, and especially
I'm sorry, what did you just say? What did you just say?
It is not the jury's responsibility to give a result that is just. It is their responsibility to say, here's the truth about what happened. And then somebody else will decide.
I thought the responsibility was to determine whether or not the state has proven each and every element beyond a reasonable doubt. Oh my God.
The sentence if the defendant is convicted.
So in so many of these cases that, you know, that we've seen, and especially in this one, it seems like the jury really took this case quite seriously. I mean, they went through the evidence, they asked the questions. Even at the last minute after they had delivered a verdict, changed their minds and said, wait a minute, we're not sure. We don't have a verdict. You know, I know that you said it's pretty unusual and that you had never seen it in your career, right? Is that right?
That's right. That's right. All the signs are that they used the utmost care in this case. You know, they had 18 jurors to begin with, and they ended with 18 jurors. And I say it's because of the judge's handling of the jury with compassion and the 18 jurors' moral commitment to doing justice over a 7-week plus.
What do you mean the moral commitment to doing justice, Your Honor? What do you mean the jury's moral commitment to doing justice? Didn't you just say their job isn't to do justice? What do you... Kill me.
Trial. And that continued all the way through deliberations. They were long past the point where you might say, oh, the jury's just trying to make it look good because they know everybody's watching. They were long past that. They were at the point where people were there had to have been some fighting going on in the jury room. And obviously, we heard about tears, so there was some strong disagreement in the jury room. All the signs are that this jury was superbly careful about their duties.
Yeah, you know, I'm thinking now, right about now is a pretty good time to start that campaign, uncivil law for judge. My campaign slogan will be, I won't be completely shit. Vote uncivil law for judge. I won't be completely shit. Yeah.
Now to an ABC News exclusive with a key witness in the Karen Read murder retrial who took the stand yesterday during the first day of testimony. She was with Read when they found the body of her Boston police officer boyfriend. She spoke with our chief national correspondent, Matt Gutman. Good morning, Matt.
Hey, good morning, George. Kerry Roberts is arguably the most important witness in this trial, but she agreed to speak with us because she wants to refocus attention on the actual victim in this case. That's her childhood friend, John O'Keefe, the Boston cop who adopted his toddler-age niece and nephew when his sister and brother-in-law tragically died. A prankster who would help you at the drop of a hat.
Free Karen Read! Free Karen Read!
Arriving in court for the first day of her second murder trial, Karen Read addressing her supporters.
I'm always confident in my team.
Read's defense team maintains she's innocent, the victim of a law enforcement cover-up. But prosecutors allege Read, drunk and angry, knowingly slammed her SUV into her boyfriend, police officer John O'Keefe, outside a get-together at another cop's home, leaving him to die in a blizzard in January of 2022. And this morning, one of the trial's key witnesses, Kerry Roberts, John O'Keefe's lifelong friend, speaking to the media for the first time, exclusively to GMA.
You think, didn't GMA describe this person as perhaps the most key witness? Really? This is the most key witness in the trial? Seriously? Okay.
You're obviously one of the key witnesses for the entire case.
Are you?
Why are you speaking out now on...
She's one of the key witnesses? Really? I don't know, man. I'm not sure about that one.
The eve of Karen's second trial.
I think people have forgotten John in general. He is the victim. He's lost his life. He's not coming back.
Roberts took the stand yesterday and will continue testifying today. She is a critical witness for the prosecution because she was the first person Karen Read called at 5 a.m. the morning of the blizzard trying to find John.
Can you tell me what she said, what Karen told Kerry that morning when she called?
I believe she said, was that the first time she called John's dead?
Yes.
Kerry relayed to Brendan Kane, a longtime friend of John's, the contents of her call that morning with Karen Read.
When Karen called Kerry, she was histrionic, screaming, John's dead, John's dead. I think you get hit by a plow. Kerry, John's dead. Is that right?
The first phone call was John's dead, then she hung up.
So that early morning, Kerry picked up Karen and another O'Keefe friend, Jennifer McCabe.
I knew of her. I had met her once, and that was it.
They drive to the house where Karen dropped John off. It's dark in a blinding blizzard.
It was so snowy, you couldn't see. And as we were driving, Karen would lean in between us, and she was frantic. I mean, she knew John was missing, so she was frantic about it, as I would be. And then we turned to pull down Fairview, and she saw him on the lawn, and I didn't.
Kerry quickly joins Karen on the lawn, and the two women perform CPR on John until police arrive.
We went to go find him and make sure he got home okay. And when you find him and he's not okay, it was pretty hard.
Kerry and John's were friends since childhood. So was Brendan Kane.
He was a diehard Celts, Sox, Bruins, Pats fan. Name it, Boston sports. He was obsessed.
O'Keefe became a cop like his grandfather, staying close to his family, including his sister Kristen. When she and her husband died within months of each other, John took his niece and nephew in as his own. Kerry was his right hand.
It was like all hands on deck when they would go to dance recitals and stuff, father-daughter dances. I would do their hair and get the boutonniere and get the corsage, and he did a great job. This was one of my best friends.
In the 3 years since Read was arrested, the town of Canton has been transformed. Neighbors have taken sides. Witnesses have been harassed.
For the crime of?
Telling the truth.
Answering the phone.
It's my friend. I'm not going to not help. It's all about which side are you on. We're John's closest friends and family, and we still haven't been able to grieve because of all of this. It's all lost on this circus.
Why did John want to become a cop?
Johnny believed in fairness. Johnny believed in justice. And he'd be appalled at where we are 3.5 years later.
I bet he would.
Kerry Roberts is
I bet he would.
Of witnesses whose testimony points to Karen knowing.
All right, that was interesting. All right, cool. What else we got? All right, Read's statement from Read's parents. All right, let's watch this thing. See if there's any super chats I failed to acknowledge so far. Thank you for the 2,600 of you spending some time with me. I do appreciate it very well. Let's see. Chicken Shite for $2 Canadian said Morrissey hasn't seen his cock in years. He's angry. Greg asked for $5 Australian says you find the comments by the retired Supreme Court Judge Jack Lew in Boston. Yes, we found them, and yeah, he's as is he retired from the Supreme Judicial Court? If he's retired from the Supreme Judicial Court, why am I not a judge? Continues to, yeah. All right. Darren Larson became an uncivilian. Chicken Shy for $2 Canadian says, I'm a huge Bruin fan. I'll never go to Boston now. Okay, that's great. All the stupid, it hurts. All right, let's watch this interview.
It has been a whirlwind of a week for Karen Reed after being acquitted on all charges related to the death of her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe. Today we spoke with Reed.
I'm going to take a moment to chill before we get into this. First of all, I just want to thank the 2,600 of you who are here. If you wouldn't mind throwing a buck in the tin, I do appreciate it. Your super chats help keep the channel going. So if you wouldn't mind throwing a couple bucks my way, it'd be appreciated. Also, by the way, if you prefer to donate through Ko-fi.com or coffee.com, that helps a lot too, because then it doesn't cost you anymore, but I get a bigger cut. So if you want to donate through that, you can type !donate and it will provide you the link. And then instead of YouTube taking 30%, I think Ko-fi takes like 5%. So it's a lot better for me. And you can hit the like button. And we also do have some great merch at our merch store. You should check it out. There's some good stuff. People like it. You should check the items out. And our merch giveaway winner yesterday wanted the dog mug. So we did a merch giveaway yesterday, and they wanted the Chloe mug thing. So that was cool. So another successful merch item giveaway. So that was fun. $20 from Lean On Me. Forgive me if this is addressed. Do you believe that some judges are political? Well, that's a difficult question to answer, but I'll get to that in a second. Let me finish your question and I'll get back to that part. I know they try to do a great job. I wonder if they have political pressure. By the way, I love this channel. You're funny and smart. Okay. There are two answers to your question. Some judges are political and some judges are not strictly speaking political, but they make decisions that can be perceived as political. There are different kinds of judicial philosophies that are not necessarily political. They have a tendency these days of being affiliated more with, well, let me, there's a difference between political thinking and legal thinking, and I separate this issue all the time. Like, for example, I'm politically conservative, and I'm also judicially conservative, but that doesn't mean that I always rule for Trump, for example, as anyone who follows this channel knows, right? Because judicial philosophy is not based on, it comes from principles that are based in something, and to the extent that, you know, Trump is wrong based on his principles, he's wrong. So there are judges who rule for political reasons because of the true politics of the things, and then there are judges who make decisions based on legal principles that are not strictly speaking political. You know, if you have a judge who like is just very like originalist or very textualist, for example, that's not the same thing as being political, right? Because like the judge will make the decision based on the philosophy rather than the parties. So that was a somewhat complicated answer to your question. I think in some cases it's political, not for least of reasons than some states judges are elected, which arguably makes it more political. So for example, Texas judges are elected. So does that make it more political? Probably. Is that good? Depends on your point of view. So all those things, but thank you very much for your question. American Dreamer says something witty. Appreciate you. Thank you, $5. Joe Kelly for $10 says, here's your super chat. And then there were some other things that provide instructions. And Larissa Harris became an uncivilian. Thank you very much for your contribution. Let's go back and watch this thing from the start. Also, by the way, shout out to our mods because they do great work. Rose is doing some great work in the background, helping to bring me things to cover and stuff like that. So our mods do great work. Shout out to Rose and shout out to our other mods because they do yeoman's work. They're great.
It has been a whirlwind of a week for Karen Reed after being acquitted on all charges related to the death of her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe. Today we spoke with Reed's parents about what's next for them and for their daughter. WBZ's Tammy Mutasa has more now from Dedham.
It's been a week like no other here in Dedham following the high-profile Karen Reed trial verdict. Now her family, jurors, and the governor are reflecting on the case.
You say, I don't want to think that way because what if it isn't that? It's going to be horrible. So you're trying to think more about what if she's incarcerated rather than what if she's free.
But 2 days fresh from their daughter's acquittal on her most serious charges, Karen Reed's parents are still processing their legal victory and looking forward to what's next for their daughter now that she's a free woman.
I think her life is forever changed, and I think ours is significantly altered. Yeah. She's determined, she's focused, very bright, and she got us through this. She got herself through this. She was the fifth lawyer.
A jury decided Reed wasn't responsible for the death of her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe, on January 29, 2022. Governor Maura Healey, a former attorney general, weighing in on the verdict.
I still love that suit no matter what color it is. I don't know what color it is, but I love it, whatever it is. It looks really, really good on her. I very much approve of that color.
So, I always reflect on the family of John O'Keefe and feel very sorry for them. But the criminal justice system has run its course, and there's finality in that.
Finality coming from 12 jurors, including Paula Prado, who feels for the O'Keefe family, but says in the end there were too many holes in the police investigation.
I'm 100% convinced. Yes, I really don't think she was responsible for his death. The deliberation part for me was a little overwhelmed because of the pressure of have someone's life in your hand.
But she won't go as far as saying Reed was framed.
So I can't say she was framed, but maybe, I don't know, I don't know.
And now the question of who is responsible for John O'Keefe's death is still unanswered, but it's one the Reeds hope is found.
Is it a loss? Without a doubt.
That's very sad.
Do I feel sorrow for the O'Keefe family and friends? Of course. Do I think we'll know the answer someday? I suppose in my heart of heart, I do.
Reed is still facing a civil wrongful death lawsuit filed by the O'Keefe family. In Dedham, Tammy Mutasa, WBZ News.
Okay, that was interesting. All right, here's a retired FBI agent who wants to speak about some of this stuff. That's good. So there was a statement from, let's see. There was a motion to impound the jury names, which makes sense. Also, there's this statement from the State Police Association. The association continues to send its sincere condolences to the family of Boston Police Officer John O'Keefe. The jury has spoken and remain respectful of the process. However, since the beginning of the trial, there's been numerous attacks and accusations against our troopers and sergeants. Yep. Careers have been lost. Yes, mostly because you fired them for cause. Families have been devastated, and many lives have been changed forever. As our current and former members continue to be subjects of baseless accusations, it's important to remember that the investigation into the deaths of John O'Keefe has been investigated with great scrutiny by both the members of the state police and the FBI. To date, there is yet to be any information the investigation was compromised in any way. We remain steadfast in our commitment to represent the men and women of the State Police Association and forever grateful for the work our members do every day to serve the citizens of the Commonwealth. Well, that last part is pretty scary. I kind of forgot for a moment that you guys are actually still working every day to serve the citizens. I kind of forgot that for a second. Thank you for reminding me. That's not horrifying in any way. Let's see. Okay, copy this link. Copy this link. Why is this not working? There it goes. You should put up the ethics rules and lawyers commenting on jurors and jurors' decisions. I suppose I could. I mean, it's pretty like, I suppose I could pull up the rule, but you know, basically it's like, you know, it's constrained. What was I trying to do? I was trying to do super chats. Let's see. Ooh, nice donation just came in too. I'm in on the joke for $5. Says, I believe Carrie's husband suffers from spousal abuse. That's a battered man if I ever seen one. I appreciate that. Greg asks for $2 Australian. Says, Judge Lou's comments on the Karen Read acquittal are scary. Artemis Treste for $100 said Nicholas Roberts, blood test analyst, testified via extrapolation that Karen Read was drunk with unobserved hours gap time. Are we now all subject to charges after the fact via never before accepted court approved methods in the case? Shouldn't all the charges be also? Well, to answer your question, and thank you very much for your super chat. To answer your question, DUI from first principles is no different than any other criminal charge. Okay, so the cops only need evidence to convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt of the truth of the offense, and that is true of any offense. So, you know, 950 times out of 1,000, I'm sure the evidence for a DUI is a breathalyzer that was done when they pulled you over, a blood draw that was done when they pulled you over, you know, the roadside sobriety test when they pulled you over, right? That's 950 times out of 1,000. But it doesn't need to be the trick case, right? What they need is proof beyond a reasonable doubt, and that evidence can come from anywhere, as long as they and then of course in charging a DUI, they have to charge you within the statute of limitations. Now, in this case, of course, the DUI was a lesser included, so the legal conceit is that she was always charged with DUI the whole time because it's a lesser included, and that's part of, because DUI was part of the charge. She was always charged with it. It's a conceit. So whether or not, like, for example, Higgins or anyone else could be charged with DUI, I don't know, because I don't know what the statute of limitations is for DUI in this jurisdiction, assuming there is one. But like the conceit is she was always charged with DUI because DUI was always included. In terms of being able to convict her, you know, you just need to be able to present evidence that convinces a jury. So, for example, the blood draw that was done by the hospital was not done by an accredited lab. So that's a thing. And also, it's based off of extrapolations and things like that. Is it relevant evidence? Sure. Because for evidence to be relevant, it has to make a fact that's more or less, it has to make a fact that's in dispute more or less likely. So if we're trying to ask whether or not she was drunk at, say, 12:40 in the morning, on the day in question, the blood draw that was done is some evidence that makes it more likely that she was drunk at that time in the morning. Now, there are a lot of ways for her. There's a lot of ways for, I mean, to any degree, it makes it more likely. And it's like, yeah, to some degree, it makes it more likely. How much more likely, I suppose, is in the eye of the beholder. But yes, it's relevant evidence. So you can be afraid that they can bring DUI charges within the statute of limitations, assuming that they can cobble together evidence from whatever sources it can be provided that would convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt. And assuming that they can do that, then yes, you can be convicted. So that is the answer to the question. And that is just the answer to the question. So yes. So yeah, but that is the right answer. And there is evidence to support the DUI. There is evidence, and even evidence to support beyond a reasonable doubt. I probably would have voted guilty on it. You know, you have her own statements that she made. You have counting the drinks from the bar. You have the blood draw that was done. You have, you know, eyewitness testimony. There's plenty of evidence to convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt. So yeah, you're there. As far as I'm concerned, yeah, you're there. And also, incidentally, by the way, as to like, couldn't she have drunk alcohol at other times? There's really no evidence to support that proposition. That in my view would be undue speculation, right? You don't have any evidence. There's been no evidence presented relating to other drinks she might have had at other times. So in my view, it would be unduly speculative to suggest that because we don't have any evidence to support that. All we have is the evidence of when she was drinking based on the videotapes and so forth and so on. So, you know, I think that the idea that she could have been drinking at other times is unduly speculative in my view. So that is my perspective. But, you know, be that as it may. So, yeah. Hopefully that was helpful, if not what you wanted to hear. But thank you for the super chat. It was very generous, which is why I spent some time answering it.
Joining me today to talk about the Karen Read verdict and case is Kenneth Gray of the University of New Haven. He's a former FBI agent. Kenneth, you've been following this case closely, right?
Absolutely. So this case has been going on with the murder in 2022, and first trial ended in a...
Have I read the statute? Which one? But yeah, basically, like, it's driving on a public road under the influence, either 0.08 or greater, or under the influence of the intoxicant. Yeah, basically, why? I understand that. Would the drinking stop time not be undue speculation, as there's no proof she stopped? Well, we have evidence of when she drank. So that would be the evidence that's available. We have the drinks that she had. You can count them if you want, and that's evidence, and you're there. So all those things, but yeah.
A mistrial, and now we finally have some conclusion to this after all this time.
So what was your initial reaction when you first heard the verdict, the not guilty on the 3 serious charges and the guilty on the driving drunk?
So, of course, after watching this very closely, I was not surprised by this verdict. In fact, I halfway expected the jury to end up acquitting her on all charges. But nonetheless, because of her extensive interviews she did after the first trial, she...
And Artemis Treatise for $5 says, then all the drivers there at the time of the death, just to be fair. Well, again, I don't know whether or not you're still within the statute of limitations of the DUI at this point. I don't know whether or not you could bring those charges at this point against anyone else who was there. So it might be too late in time. The legal conceit is that she was charged with the DUI the entire time because it's part of the charge that it was brought. But whether or not you could bring charges against anyone else at this time, I don't know. And we could look it up and see what the statute of limitations is, but it's probably fairly low. If I had to bet, assuming there is one, but there probably is. It's probably something like a year if I had to guess, but, you know, I mean, whatever. So, but thank you for the super chat again. It's very nice of you. 6 years? Is it really 6 years? That's a long time. Okay, so if it's 6 years, then yes, they could bring the DUI charges against those other people too. They absolutely could then. And they would have basically the same evidence, including their own testimony. And yeah, they should be able to, they could do that. That'd be fine.
More or less confessed to operating the motor vehicle while she was under the influence. And so they came back with that, but they came back with some questions with the judge before they rendered that verdict, because they were concerned that since it was carried under the charge of manslaughter as a lesser charge, they were concerned that if they convicted her on the operating under the influence, it would end up having her charged with manslaughter. So the end result was she was acquitted on the greater charges and convicted on the lesser charge of operating under the influence.
Obviously, Karen Read had a ton of supporters. This trial drew crowds every single day to that Dedham courtroom. Now, the jury obviously isn't allowed to watch the media, read anything online about the case itself, but I mean, seeing supporters there when you're coming in and out of the courtroom on a daily basis, does that sway public opinion at all?
I'm sure it did. I mean, there were thousands of people there on the last couple of days of the trial. But nonetheless, as you said, there was a large group that was out there every day when she was coming in and out of the courthouse and when the jury was coming in and out. And so despite the fact that they are not supposed to be checking the media and such, I'm sure there must have been times where they might have happened upon reports showing the amount of support she had. This is very unusual. She was accused of murdering a Boston police officer. And yet to have this number of people supporting her shows how much they found that charging her was an injustice. And so now the big question is justice for John O'Keefe. Will the state go and reinvestigate this case and try to find the person actually responsible? Or are they going to claim that Karen Reed was responsible, but they didn't have the evidence to convict her?
I'm curious, do you think that they can go back and reinvestigate the case when we know that the investigation was so botched?
Well, that's really the problem here, is that this case was botched from the get-go. Here it is, a snowstorm. They're out trying to collect up evidence there from the front yard. They didn't take photographs. They didn't make a drawing. They didn't make any measurements. The evidence that would have been useful to convict her was not found until days later, and there was no security of that crime scene for all those days. And so anyone could come in there and put that evidence in that place. And that's what the defense was referring to, that that evidence was not found until days later by the lead investigator who was fired on the case. And so not only was the evidence not collected up correctly, but the investigation was being done by a person who, Michael Proctor, who had connections to the Alberts there that owned the house where this occurred at. And so this was a messed up investigation. So there really is nothing there for a cold case squad to come in and investigate. It was a botched investigation from the very beginning.
Right, and I do want to talk a little bit more about the lead investigator, Proctor, who was then fired from the Massachusetts State Police. Now, he, of course, was accused of framing Reed, something that he then denied. What role did that play in the verdict? Obviously, with this whole investigation.
Why is her audio so bad? She's in studio. Why does she have a potato microphone? What the hell?
I think with public opinion, there was a huge mistrust of police because of the allegations.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first trial, the first go around on this, the defense tried to build their case based upon a conspiracy, that Karen Reed was framed, that others were responsible for the death, and that they tried to use a number of the people that were involved with the party there at the Alberts house as the basis of their conspiracy theory, and that police were protecting the Alberts there because Brian Albert was a Boston cop, a retired Boston cop. Second trial instead was a battle of experts. The second trial had the expert on the side of the prosecutor that was trying to show that it was possible for Karen Reed to have hit John O'Keefe and caused his death, while the defense brought in their experts, which show that it was not possible, that she could not have hit him and have his body thrown where it was into the yard, and that it also would not have broken the taillight the way that it was said. And furthermore, the injury on John O'Keefe's arm, according to the defense's experts, was from a dog bite, a dog that the Alberts had and got rid of immediately in the aftermath of this death. And so you can see where the conspiracy is still looming over the case, even though the defense did not make that as a primary focus in the second trial.
There are so many working parts to this case. It really was crazy to see unfold in the courtroom, not once but twice. And like you said, they took different steps the second time around to try and prove their case. Now, thinking of John O'Keefe, this man is dead. His family has no answer still. There's really no justice for him right now. As a result of that, do you think that this could end up becoming a civil trial?
Oh, absolutely. There will be a civil trial. The O'Keefe's family will sue Karen Reed, and then the level of proof is far lower in a civil trial than it is in a criminal trial, as we saw with the OJ trial. If you recall, for the OJ trial, you're too young to remember the OJ trial, but
I've heard about it.
For those of us who recall the OJ trial, OJ was sued after the trial, and he lost that trial. And so likewise, Karen Reed could be sued in this case by the O'Keefe family, but again, it will boil down to experts.
Right. All right. Well, definitely a case that I'm sure will go down in history. And similar to O.J. Simpson, we'll be talking about this one for decades to come. Kenneth, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Interesting. Very good. Can I check your post in Discord? Sure. What do you have to say in Discord and in what channel? Shay Benai. Let's see if I can find what you said in what post. Okay. Let's see. There's some posts relating to the comments from the judge. Yeah, the judge made very weird comments. Sued for what? Wrongful death would be the lawsuit. It's currently pending. Yeah, but that's going to be hard to prove because you have to present all those things. Paul O'Keefe wants $50,000. Oh, well, if that's all he wants, then the insurance company will settle for that. If he only wants his $50K, they'll settle. It's not worth anyone's time to fight over. I'm surprised. Are you sure he didn't say at least $50K? Did he actually want only $50K? If it says like at least $50K, that's like a statutory thing. It's like a threshold thing for the jurisdiction of the particular court. Yeah, I have a doubt. I have a hard time believing he only wants $50K. That sounds wrong. Let's see. All right, what was I trying to do? I was trying to watch this thing. All right. CBS Boston segment was pulled. It's not what I played earlier. Okay. Where is it in Discord? You know, I have to find it. Okay, give me a second. Let's see if I can find it. I don't see it. Sorry.
Going back into the middle 70s.
So you have a unique perspective on this. What are your thoughts overall?
Go lay the law. I knew all those officers that investigated this case, and they all came on the job on my watch. I was a midnight sergeant at the time, back in '88 and '88 on. Berkowitz, Rafferty, Gigi and Petro, Gallagher, Sheriff, they all came on when I was the supervisor. And you know, you go through an academy. If you pass the academy, you should know.
Lean on me, $9.99. Is it true that a lot more can come out civil trial than criminal? Well, if for no other reason than they can depose Karen Reed because she no longer has jeopardy, so they can put her under oath for whatever value it has. So there's that. If so, could that be bad for the witnesses? Well, the witnesses have already told their story, so they'll say the exact same thing, I'm sure. So, yeah.
How to at least start to investigate a case. They could have set up a crime scene. They could have set up a mobile command center. Kelleher from across the street should have come out as a deputy chief. Certainly the highest in command on site. He should have directed and controlled everybody. They should have called in, I think, the whole police department on a total recall and said, you know, we got a murder, we got a police officer, we got a police officer's house, we got a big storm coming, everybody come in, bring a toothbrush and an overnight bag, and we're going to work this case, we're going to look at every ring camera, to set up a perimeter.
They didn't do anything.
They didn't do anything. They went so far from protocol and standard operating procedures that it had to be intentional. I said that with LV Cops, and I've said it with every interviewer I've talked to, and you just heard it. Had to be intentional.
Peter, it's been so nice to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it was something, man. It was a pretty big fuck up, man. It was something. All right, so someone sent me an X link, so we're going to give that a shot and see what it has to say. All right, so let's see what this X link is.
Karen Reed is acquitted, which means right now no one is being held responsible for the death of John O'Keefe. Karen Reed is acquitted, which means right now no one is being held responsible for the death of John O'Keefe.
And Judge, outside of court, one of our attorneys was asked, are you calling for a reinvestigation into what really happened? You think the Commonwealth will actually reopen any type of investigation?
You know, I don't have any inside information, and I had no communications with the folks involved in this, but certainly not. Karen Reed killed Mr. O'Keefe. They just couldn't prove it to a jury. And in America, that means you're not guilty. It does not, I repeat, it does not mean that you are innocent. She had a lot of nerve saying to that microphone that I want justice for Mr. O'Keefe. She was acquitted, but there's nobody else to investigate. There's no third-party culprit.
Karen Reed is acquitted, which means right now no one.
Very insightful, Your Honor. Very insightful. That's very good. Yeah. Apparently, yeah. Was the statement by the end? I got no skin in the case, but thought the judge was out of line. And David Wade said it was inappropriate, and unexpected. Yeah, that was a lot. That was a lot. I smell a lawsuit from the Reed team. No, not really. There's no lawsuit to be had there for defamation. You know, because all the facts that he's, well, yeah, I don't think there's any lawsuit to be had for defamation, but, you know, if wishes made it so. Yeah, it's definitely a wow, Miss Shorty. I will concede that for sure. Yeah. And apparently the station scrubbed it, which makes sense because the station's like, oh, no, that doesn't really work for us. So the station got rid of it because they have ethics, which I appreciate. The stupid is real. For a judge, he doesn't know much. His acquittal does mean she's innocent. Well, not really, but yeah, he's right. He's right. It's just like, but then to like say, oh, she really did it is pretty pissy. Yeah, that person was a judge. Yeah, no doubt. Second crazy judge in this Commonwealth. Yeah, no doubt. Runkle's interview was amazing. We could rewatch it now that it's happened. I didn't want to live stream it because I didn't want to take away his views. But seeing as he got like 500 whatever super chats, and he's up to like 350,000 views, and you know, seeing as all the rest of it, I don't think he would mind at this point me covering it. Like me live streaming it was too much, but I don't think he'd mind me watching it. So maybe I'll use the restroom and we'll watch the interview because it was a good interview. It was a good interview, and I wouldn't mind rewatching it. It was exciting. Yeah, enjoy. I'm not sure he can be sued for that, but you know, maybe. Yeah, ask him. I could ask him. Let's see if he's awake. Let's see if he's awake. He might not be awake. I doubt that he would mind, because I'm not preempting him. I'm not like taking anything away from him at this point. Yeah, I doubt he would mind. I think it's okay. If it's not, well, yeah, it's probably fine. Yeah, because there's no like harm at this point. So Let's do it. I'm wrong. I'm commenting on it. Yeah, I mean, also he's my friend though. I don't want to, be me. He's got 359,000 views. The man had like 600 super chats last night. I think he's doing fine. Let me use the restroom real fast and then we'll watch the thing. Okay, give me just a second. I also need to make myself a oatmeal shake because I haven't had anything to eat and I need some calories. So give me like 5 minutes and we'll do this thing. All right. Be right back. Talk amongst yourselves. All right, guys, we have emergency discussion with Ian Runkle, your friend of mine. How you doing, Ian?
Oh, I am, let's just say I slept like a rock, and it's hard to believe that, hard to believe where things are. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, you did wonderful, Lester. First of all, of course, just congratulations on the GAT, just generally speaking. And I think you picked up like 9,000 subs last night.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So you picked up 9,000 subs, and I think you're at like 350,000 for the video last night. And I think you said when you were reading the super chats, I think you said you had 529 super chats, and then I think more came in after that. So congrats on the 600 super chats, I guess.
Well, thank you. I mean, and I had a thing up on my pinned thing saying, you know, for discouraging super chats.
You did. It didn't work.
No, well, I guess I can't complain too much. So yeah.
Okay, so I was asking Ian if he wouldn't mind me doing his thing, and he asked me if I wouldn't mind waiting a day or two, which of course I'm happy to wait. But then Ian told me a story of a scummery on a level I had never heard before. So Ian, why don't you tell me what other people are doing with your videos? Because this one was a new one.
So somebody sent me an email going, "Hey, did you allow this to happen?" And this was actually like before I was done reading super chat. Somebody got up to this. So they posted my video, and thankfully they're a fairly small channel. They have gotten a request from YouTube to send them a nuke. So because this is a high level of fuckery that I had never imagined before. But what they did is they took the interview, or at least like critical portions of the interview. I think they took the portions they thought were best, because the video is like, 20 minutes long. And they edited me out. So they muted whenever I was talking, and they put themselves over me in the thing and made it look like they were conducting the interview. And I'm just like, well, that's a copyright problem. And that is a whole new level of what the fuck that I'd never imagined before.
Yeah, no, that's a new one. Someone just uploading your video themselves, or like just doing with them sitting in the corner, not reacting. Like that's one level of fuckery. New level of fuckery. Edit out the interviewer and make it seem like you were the one conducting the interview. That's the level of scummery that had never occurred to me until now.
Yeah, well, hopefully it's not one that you're going to feel inclined to duplicate, because I don't think anybody.
I may or may not Photoshop me as a still in your place and upload it as a to my YouTube community tab. Be like, look forward to my new interview. I might do that. See if anyone gets the joke. But yeah, other than that, not so much.
I suspect they'd be more angry than amused.
Yeah.
I can tell you the email I got that was saying, "Did you allow this?" Was because I mean I had like a certain amount of recognition for the I guess for the hustle, if that makes sense. Because I was just like, wow, this is a level of like fuckery that I'm just like, okay, like I'm kind of almost impressed, right? What is it?
And they were doing it in real time, because you said they were doing it before the interview was even over. So they were doing all these edits in real time.
Well, it was before the super chats were done, and the super chats did take a while.
I mean, still though.
So, yeah, I just was really kind of impressed at like, and like, not thrilled, of course, but I was like, wow, that is impressive levels of douchebaggery. I had never actually thought somebody would get up to that. And yeah, I was just like, wow, that is impressive. So they earned my sort of like I was impressed, but also not thrilled. If that makes sense. It's like, wow, that's special. Of course, you mean that you realize this means war, but
Well, that is amazing. That is a whole new level of something, man. That's awesome. Well, you did a great interview, and you were very polite. The only thing I wish you had asked about would have asked about their workout routine, because I need to know more about Alessi's workout routine at Equinox. I need to know how he lifts and what programs he uses and what apps he uses. But other than that, I thought it was great.
I mean, the thing is I would love to, figure out his workout routine. The problem is I don't think I could match it.
No, he's showing us up. Yeah, he's 67. He's showing us all up, man. He's gonna crush us.
I suspected his workout routine would just be like, he's like, the gym wasn't open, so I just went down to the parking garage and started lifting.
That's right.
My rental car.
That's right. I was just using the I-beams. I was using the grip on the I-beams to do pull-ups in the parking garage. Yeah, that 100%.
Or more than that, I was using the I-beams to do bench presses. I was just lifting the hotel up.
Yeah, well, if that guy wants to make me his workout buddy on whatever app he uses, man, he will inspire me. But Rose, my mod, wants you to know that the entire chat is sending you both love and anger, respectfully, to the various parties involved in this thing, because we all love you and you're the best. But I'll let you rest up, and we can talk some more later, because you deserve some rest.
Sounds good. I actually, rather than rest, Mrs. Runkle is up at the land there with a bunch of Girl Guides, and she forgot water.
Uh-huh.
Now the thing is that they actually have water, because there's 10 gallons of water there. But she's like, "Can you make a water delivery?" So that's what I'm off to do. Is I'm off to go drop off a whole pile of water so that nobody has any issues, because I don't know if they've found the water that is up there. So
Runkle Water Courier, the life of the greats.
Hey, I mean, I'm happy to do it. I also am going to take the Starlink up there and get it set up. So that should be awesome too.
All right, man. You're the best.
Oh, well, thank you, and talk to you soon.
All right, bye-bye. I figured you guys wanted to hear that story. I was talking with Runkle for a while. I'm like, wait a second. I'm actually streaming right now. Can I put you on mic so that they can hear the story directly? Holy shit, dude. Yeah, that's a new level of scummery. I never contemplated, man. That's a new one. I'm not just uploading it myself. I'm not just like putting myself in the corner and barely reacting. I'm actually editing myself out. I'm editing the interviewer out and pretending I'm the one doing the interview. Wow, that is a level. That is a level of something that is amazing and horrific, and just wow. I mean, I guess there are no bounds, man. There are just no bounds. Yeah. Well, in honor of Runkle's request to not do the reaction right away, we will do it at another time. We'll give it a day or two, and we'll do it another time, so we don't steal anything from whatever residual tail this thing has. So we'll defer. We'll defer for a couple days and do it at a later time. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. Oh, Lord. Let's cover this civil suit against Karen Reed. Is this new? YouTube might eat you because you report them. Well, in that event, it's not a problem, because I just file a counter notice with "I have permission." Which, yeah. So, I mean, it's not an issue, but, in any event, oh yeah, this is from 2024. this civil suit. It's wrongful death civil suit. I mean, we can read parts of this suit. It's nothing like extraordinary or interesting, but we can read parts of this suit because it's just your run of the mill wrongful death suit. I'm sure. Well, with some additional flair maybe and panache, but whatever. But we'll read this for a minute. Yeah, it's only a 22-page complaint, which thank you for not overstaying its welcome. Also appreciated. They take it down already? I think so. Yeah. Yeah. That's good stuff. Yeah, there's a lawyer on YouTube saying awful stuff about jurors. There's a lawyer on Twitter saying awful stuff about jurors. There's Wendy, the former professor, who is, I don't know how she's a law professor. I don't know. Yeah. Wrongful death is a creature of statute and specific about who can sue. Are John's adopted children's one I want? Fair enough. Yeah, it might be a creature of statute. It might not. Well, but yeah, fair enough. But we'll see what the cause of action is in this wonderful jurisdiction. So the plaintiff is the surviving brother of John O'Keefe as the duly appointed personal representative of the estate. Yeah, well, that will do it. I mean, if he's suing on behalf of John O'Keefe, and he's the representative of the estate, then that does it. I mean, that's sort of the end of that game. At least for John O'Keefe's cause of action. At all relevant times, the decedent lived in Canton. The plaintiff is the surviving father. At all times, he's so he's suing on behalf of John O'Keefe, and then we got some other people suing on behalf of themselves. We got a surviving father, surviving mother, surviving niece. Because she was under the guardianship of him. Maybe, I don't know. Okay. Relevant times, descendant CNC Hospitality. We want to sue them for the drinks. We want to do a dram shop action, which apparently you can't do in Florida. Actually, I don't think Florida's alone in this. But yeah, Florida doesn't have dram shop actions. You can't sue the bar for over serving if they then cause a drunk drive or like other harm. It's one of those weird quirks of Florida law. I'm not sure if Florida's along on this, but they don't have a dram shop law, which is like, I mean, what can you do? But all right. So anyways, Massachusetts apparently does have a dram shop law because that makes sense. Wherein we can sue the place for over serving for the liquor. Yeah. The defendant, Waterball Grill and Grill, we're suing them for over-serving the liquor. Facts. The decedent was the middle of 3 children. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. Right, okay. Defendant knew the relationship had run its course. Plaintiff arrived at McCarthy's. McCarthy's is licensed to serve alcohol. They were served the alcohol and consumed the drinks. Through its agents, served alcohol beverage, consumed drinks. Incidentally, by the way, I think the bars have already settled. Don't quote me on that, but I seem to have a thing just flashed in my mind. I'm like, wait a second, I think the bars might have settled since then, which would make a lot of sense. So pressing on, I can't. So signs of intoxication, left McCarthy's, allowed to carry alcoholic drink out of McCarthy's. Entered Waterfall, served alcohol, blah, 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 served some drinks, left Waterfall, was under the influence of alcohol and unable to drive a motor vehicle, drove to the residence, had an argument, got out of the vehicle, drove the SUV in a state of intoxication. Well, I mean, that much has been proven by the grand jury, by the jury. So drove this vehicle in the state of intoxication, pretty much they're there. How can you sue a bar for being a bar? For over-serving. It's negligence, right? The bar has a duty to not overserve, and they overserve, leading to injury, blah, 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 blah. It's a fairly common cause of action, just routine negligence, nothing overcomplicated. Bars have a duty to follow the law, and so they overserved and they're licensed and all the rest of it. So, basically all that. That's how you sue them. It's a very common cause of action in most jurisdictions. Not so much Florida. At all relevant times, Reed drove to the SUV, intentionally did conduct, blah, blah, blah. Knew she hit him with the SUV, relevant times, blah, blah. We already know what this lawsuit says. We know what it says. It's a standard run-of-the-mill wrongful death. Okay, defendant. So we sue. So the estate wants to sue for wrongful death versus McCarthy's decision not to hire competent employees, provide adequate personnel work. So it's your standard run-of-the-mill dram shop action against CF McCarthy's, no muss, no fuss. And then we have estate versus Waterfall Bar and Grill. Again, just your standard dram shop action, no muss, no fuss. All those stuff. We have the estate versus Karen Reed for, actually causing the wrongful death. Fair enough. And then we have Margaret O'Keefe for negligent infliction of emotional distress against McCarthy's and not any ID. I don't think so. Any ID? Oh man, I don't know. That seems like a reach. And then let's see. We want to sue McCarthy's for any ID on an ID. We want to sue McCarthy's for, we want to sue for negligent. I don't know about that one. Negligent infliction of emotional distress. I don't know. That feels like a reach to me on first blush. Negligent and or reckless infliction of emotional distress. Okay. That feels like a reach. The dram shop action is better. But okay. Yeah, and then, basically, so we're just suing the bars for the dram shop action. We're throwing in NIED because we're bored, and we're suing her for wrongful death. The estate is, at least. So, fair enough. So all those things. Yeah, it's a standard run-of-the-mill wrongful death cause of action with some dram shops thrown in. So blah, blah, blah. Are these cases on PACER? No, because it's not federal. It's state. So it wouldn't be on DRAM. It wouldn't be on PACER. It would be on the state equivalent of whatever. It won't get John back. I understand. But, that's all we have is our system. Nothing can get John back, sadly. But, that's what we have. We have money. That's what we have. So, that's it. Yeah, it's a tort law exam. Had this essay portion email your professor of torts and restatement of torts. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. But like the basic principle is easy enough. Like the NEID feels like a little bit much because it feels a little whatever. Reed didn't cause John O'Keefe's death. Defense from DRAM. Yeah, sure. Yeah, because you need the injury. You need the causality from the bar. Sure. Yeah, because if they overserved her, but it didn't lead to any injury, then there's no cause of action. You need causality in a negligence cause of action, right? Duty, breach, cause, and damage. If there's no causality and there's no damage, then there's no negligence. So yeah, of course. Yeah, you can't just you can't sue the bar for overserving the bar. You have to have some injury, even if you're the person that got overserved. Like if it doesn't cause any injury to you, you can't sue. You might be able to sue if you were injured by it, but yeah. But sure, yeah, the fact that the collision never happened. But I think they settled. And their insurance covered. I think they settled, which, if they settled for nuisance value, then, makes sense. So all that stuff. Yeah. All those things. But yeah, they still have to prove the collision, of course. So the driving under the influence has been established by the jury. So we got so you can bring that in, but you don't really have anything. So they still have to, they would have to prove, the injury leading to death. They have to prove all those things. Now they only have to prove it to beyond, apologies. They only have to prove it to preponderance. They have to prove preponderance, but they have to do that. So they would have to hire experts and bring them in and have them testify and all the rest of it. So, it's not trivial. It's not a give me. So but it's not, impossible either. So it depends on what they're trying to do. It depends on their level of rage. It depends, if they're doing a full, Moby Dick from hell's hard I stab at thee kind of thing, right? If they just want to see the world burn, and they want to take it to the end of the page, then they can if they want to. So obviously, in order to settle, even for Karen Reed to settle, they would have to agree on an amount, right? So if these people don't want to settle, You know, we're suing you for $1 billion. You know, we're not going to settle. So, you know, whatever. So I read, if you're convicted of one charge, you can't sue for wrongful prosecution. Is it true? We don't know. Or I don't know, more of the point, Allison. I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah, this is not clear. The standard rule is if you are convicted, you can't sue the police because of res judicata, right? You can't sue for violation of your rights because you're convicted. That's the standard rule. But whether or not it's true here, I'm not 100%. And I don't like to speak out of turn, right? It's like, I don't know. Like the standard rule is yes, but is it true here? What is, or to put it like in a legally correct phrase, what is the preclusive effect of the conviction of DUI relating to issues of res judicata or collateral estoppel? Like that is the precise question. I'm like, not sure. So I don't know whether or not she can sue or not. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. Can they sue the bar for over-serving John O'Keefe? To the extent it caused injury, then I guess, sure. Yeah, I suppose you could sue the bar for over-serving John O'Keefe to the extent that it led to harm. Yeah, possibly. Sure. Why haven't I worked out yet? That's a good question. That's a good question. Why haven't I worked out yet? Probably should go to the gym now, right? Now is as good as time as any to go work out. I still have a lot of daylight left. Now's a good time. I probably should go to the gym now. Let's go to the gym now. Let's get some workout on. It'll make me feel good. I'll get my shake and I'll go to the gym and I'll do some lifting, even if it's relatively minimal, just to get out and do something today. That would be good. Let's do some lifting today. That sounds positive. In fact, I think I'm going to go ahead and end the stream so I can go do that and do something. Yeah. Yeah. So all those things. I'm going to go ahead and sign off so I can go do those things. You can sue the police under 1983 and survive a motion to dismiss if you confess the crime, if confession was coerced. Well, sure. Of course you can, because, you know, in that case, yeah, sure. I mean, all those things. Yes. Yeah. All those things are true. So yeah. Maybe we'll also go find a dog. That's true. It's hotter than a hoochie out there. It is 92 degrees, but I'll be fine. It's so hot in Houston. I'll be fine. I'll make it. I'll make it to the gym. Why haven't I worked out the preclusion of the OUI charge? Because I think it's a complicated legal question. Like, I don't even know how to go do it in principle. In order to figure that out, I'd have to like go do some like, I'd have to actually do some legal research to try to figure out the answer to this question. It's like, I'm not sure. Yeah. You busted guts, 100,000 viewers laughing, or 1,000 viewers laughing, thanks. Hire a medium to contact John, ask what happened. Facts. Yeah. All right, now's a good time to sign off on any. I will send you my workout routine. Even if I go lift some dumbbells, even if I do some simple dumbbell curls, and that's all I do, I'm doing something, man. I'm doing something. If it kills me, I'm doing something today. I've been on civil law. Until later, my friends, I hope all is well. Cheers for now, my friends, and goodbye.